No, not yet.
Not yet. Try again.
Good evening. Good evening. Hello.
Just talk. Rinse enough.
Good evening and welcome to the Southbridge School Committee meeting Tuesday, October 8th, 2013. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2 would be public input. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak this evening? Please state your name and address, please.
Good evening, McMurray, Lynn Lane. Just wanted to come and update you. As you know, I've been working on the school choice issue, the recruitment mailer that came to town. I have a Senate bill that has a hearing on the 17th, and basically is saying that one municipality cannot use their tax revenue to spend it to try to get tax revenues of other communities. It is one of 24 other bills that all deal with educational finance, Chapter 70 funding, and there's a lot on the table on the 17th about the financing of education. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm working on that, and it was before the town council last night, and I garnered their support, and they're writing a letter of support. So just an update to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public this evening? Seeing none, we'll have roll call, please. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Congdon?
Present.
Dr. Domingo?
Present.
Mrs. Donovan?
Present.
Mrs. Woodruff?
Present.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Present.
Mrs. Quinney?
Present.
Dr. O'Leary?
Present.
All present?
All present. Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the minutes, regular school committee, September 24th, 2013. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Congdon. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. McLaughlin. Is there any discussion, errors, or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor? Abstain? One abstention? 5 in favor? 1 abstention? Dr. O'Leary,
Does I have to abstain?
I think you would abstain. I don't think you were here for the minutes
Then I'll
portion.
abstain for that one as well.
All right, so 2
Sorry about that.
abstentions. Minutes pass. Next, we have chairwoman's announcements. Before you, I put some presentations for the 2 trips, so you have that in front of you. You also have the paperwork on the MCAS in front of you for the presentations later on. And I do have one announcement this evening, and it appears to me that the politics of the school committee have overtaken the true mission of this committee. There seems to be a prevailing opinion of the current majority of the school committee that this would be cured by my absence. While I do not share this opinion, I feel it is only fair to our children, who should be the focus of our actions, to allow the majority to have their way. I therefore resign from the committee to be effective at the conclusion of this meeting. I hope that this gesture will encourage the remaining members to focus on what is truly important, the youth of our community. Moving on to the next agenda would be reports of the student representative. Rosa?
Good evening. I have a list of announcements for tonight. So let's start with homecoming is October 18th. That night is also senior night, so please come and support the seniors. Any student that decides to go between the hours of 4 and 5 will get free admission into the game. So take that into account and go early. The next day will be the dance. That will start at 7 all the way up until 10. Continuing, the field hockey team and the boys and girls soccer team will be leaving this Friday. This Friday to Cape and be back Saturday afternoon. They will be playing against Mashpee and Sturgis High School. Aspira will be holding a Hispanic Heritage event this Friday, October 11th at 6 p.m. at Marquis. The high school band will be participating in the Columbus Day Parade on Monday at Worcester. Go and support them. They'll be at Shrewsbury Street. The drama production will be October 24th and 25th. The 24th will be a dinner and show, so be there at 5:30, eat some dinner, and right at 7, go and see the wonderful drama production. National Honor Society will be holding a car wash Saturday, October 12th, from 12 to 4. Go and wash your cars and take a coupon and go to Uno's that night too. And spend a lot of money so we can get 20% of it for National Honor Society. Yay! The math team, they would have a meet this Wednesday at Massachusetts. So let's all pray and hope that our math team wins. The list continues. So next, tomorrow, sophomores and juniors will have an assembly about the PSATs. Parents, please prepare your students for this. They will need to be ready. SATs are important. The ANE ELA test for the middle school will be the 17th and the 18th, and the math one will be the 23rd. Again, parents, be preparing your students. You want them to pass this test and do well. The mobile dentist will be Friday, October 18th. If you need a form, go to the nurse and get it. You can either go to Nurse Cheka or Nurse Cantera. So on Thursday, October 31st, the flu mist vaccine will be given. So again, go and see your nurse. Get that flu shot. They're good. They're important. The junior class is selling pies, so all those pie lovers, go and talk to your junior class and go and buy pies. Gain an extra weight, but it's good. Pies are good. Let's see what else. The school store and student council have made a partnership and selling artifacts. So if you want something personalized, like a beautiful sweatshirt that says school committee meeting, go call the school and get it. It'll be awesome. You guys will look wonderful in anything. Apart from that, for those seniors, it's very important. Take this seriously. There's 3 colleges that are coming next week. So Southbridge Regina is coming the 15th. Johnson Wales will be coming the 16th. And St. Joseph of Maine will be coming the 17th. If you want to sign up to talk to one of the reps, go to guidance and talk to Ms. Crook and sign up. There's a book where you go sign your name. They'll tell you the date. They'll send a little notification for you to come down. Oh, and the best part of this, there will be no school on Friday and no school Monday. No waking up early. Keep that in mind. And that's it for tonight.
Thank you, Rosa. Next, agenda item 8, school committee reports. Curriculum subcommittee, Mrs. Donovan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The Curriculum Subcommittee held its meeting on Monday, October 1st at 7 p.m. in M Room 100 at 25 Cole Ave. Present was myself, subcommittee member Dr. Domingo, subcommittee alternate Ms. Quinney. Excused was Dr. O'Leary. Also present was community member Jill Congdon, as well as our Director of Teaching and Learning, Pat Gardner, and our Supervisor of Instruction, Dr. Sarah Jordan. The first agenda item was to do some type of small meet and greet to meet our new Director of Learning, Teaching and Learning, Pat Gardner. Pat comes to our district with 29 years of education behind her. She served as high school English teacher. She's been a teaching coach. She's been a middle school principal. She's been a high school principal. She's spent some symposiums in Dubai as well as in Ireland. And her most recent achievement, we'll say, is she was she was the high school principal in Montague, Mass. For Turner Falls High School. And if you're familiar with that high school, they were a level 4 high school, and now they are out of level 4. And so we're very grateful to have her here, and we're looking forward to having her on our team as we ourselves move to getting ourselves out of level 4. The second item on our agenda was to look at different programs and initiatives that will target student achievement. The first of those is a program called Milepost. All of these programs have been discussed with the superintendent and the district leadership team. But basically, Milepost is a data warehouse program. Right now, we know our kids take MCAS and they take ANET, and teachers use a lot of their information on a system that we have in the schools called iPass. What Milepost will do is combine all of these programs into one. so that it will provide a professional or a personalized learning program for each and every individual student in the district. It will rank them nationally, it will rank them in Massachusetts, it'll rank them amongst their peers, it will keep track of their attendance. It'll be something that will align everything. So when a teacher or a school committee member or the superintendent needs to focus in on where our kids are at, that information will be right at our hands. The goal to initiate this program will be at the beginning of the next year, not the school year, but hopefully in January. And what we want to do is use grant money to fund that program. The second program that we're looking at is called Star Reading, and that that will work for our students in grades 1 through 12. Sad but true, too many students in our district cannot read, and there also are many children who do not read at their appropriate grade level. So the goal of this program is to really target our kids and see exactly where they are as far as their reading levels go, and then provide interventions at that level. Basically, it's a 15-minute computer test that the kids will take right in the classroom. Every student can take it at one time. As you progress through it, if you miss, say, 2 questions in a row, it may drop down a level so that the student can get confidence. And then once they start on a roll and seem to be getting the standard at that level, well, then the test will automatically bump it up again so that the student again can progress on, and in that sense the test becomes individualized. All of this STAR reading is aligned with our Common Core, our MAS frameworks, as well as our MCAS. It's something that Mrs. Gardner did use in Springfield. It was a very successful program there, and it's something that we really truly want to get a reading level on all of our students, and this is step 1 to do that. Another initiative that we talked about that probably won't go into effect this year, but it's called the New Teacher Induction. And basically what that will do is to really help new teachers as well as existing teachers, help them to realize or to do what's best for their kids. Whatever problems the teachers have with teaching modules, this particular program will help with that. And finally, we just talked about the need that it is crucial that we have tangible, sustainable results moving forward relative to the MCAS. We know what we need to do, we know what our problems are, and now is the time to work from the bottom up to get those issues resolved. Our next meeting has not been set, however, the agenda for that next meeting will be to set goals specifically for our subcommittee. That being said, our meeting adjourned at 8:25 p.m. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Donovan. Policy Subcommittee, Mrs. Quinney.
The next policy subcommittee is scheduled for October 16th at 5:45, which will be in the curriculum office, which is just down the hall from M100. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Negotiation Subcommittee, Mrs. McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Negotiation Subcommittee will be meeting with the Southbridge Educational Association tomorrow at 4 o'clock to resume negotiations.
Thank you. And Family and Community Engagement Subcommittee, Mrs. Congdon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Family and Community Engagement Subcommittee met last night to review the survey that 320 parents filled out over the course of the past couple of weeks. We're in the process of analyzing the results, and we're going to work on analyzing all those results and come up with a plan. We want to use those results to give the parents what they want from the survey. A lot of their concerns were math and ELL and giving their children after-school help and homework help. So we're working on a plan to be able to aid the parents in that. We also discussed and confirmed our meeting schedule for the remainder of the year. During our subcommittee meetings, we're going to be having speakers from the different community organizations come in and present about a 10 to 15-minute presentation at our meetings. Our next meeting The Southbridge Elementary PTA will be presenting, and that meeting will be on November 4th at 6:30 in room M100 on 25 Cole Ave. So everyone from the community is invited to come and attend that meeting. Other people that will be coming to speak will be Jacob Edwards Library and the Literacy Volunteers, the Southbridge Elementary Arts Initiative, Adam Miner from the Southbridge News, Aspira, Southbridge Community Connections, and the Special Education PAC will be presenting. Once these results are analyzed from the survey, we're hoping to be able to present them in a forum sometime maybe in January. But we're also working on a district-wide calendar to be able to present to the parents and members of the community all the events that we'll be holding throughout all of our schools, Eastford Road, West Street, Charlton Street, and the middle school, high school, to have a district-wide calendar and be able to send that home so everybody knows what's going on and everyone can attend all of these events. So come to our meeting on Monday, November 4th, and come see what the Southbridge Elementary PTA is offering this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Agenda Item 9, presentations. This evening, we have several different presentations. We'll be starting off with our field trip request to Italy, spring of 2015, I believe, by Miss Lisa Camarada, our special education teacher in the Southbridge Middle High School. Thank you.
I'd like to first say thank you for putting me on the agenda and giving me the opportunity to ask your permission to take the Southbridge Middle High School students to Italy. In front of you, I gave you a PowerPoint presentation, and I also gave you a pamphlet for the Europe trip. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it would take up too much time, but basically I'm going to just do a quick review. What exactly, where we are going, it is a 10-day trip to Italy. We'll be leaving in April 16th, 2015, and returning the 25th of April. Okay. My name is Lisa Kamada, and I've been in education for 15 years, and the last year here at Southbridge. I've had the opportunity to go to London, Paris, Berlin, Dresden, and Prague, and with Quabog Regional School District. It is my intentions of, when I came here, to really be able to bond with the students and give them an opportunity to really have an educational opportunity that they don't normally would get in a classroom alone. I've also sent 2 of my own students with this tour company and with the EF Tours. Both companies are very awesome. I mean, I have no problem doing that. I guess you can put me in front of children and I'm fine. Get me in front of adults and I'm like, okay. Basically, what this is it is a trip that students, it's a great incentive for students to do well. It is an opportunity for them to open their eyes and see a world and see a culture that they would not normally have the chance to do. As for students, which students would be able to go, everything is outlined in here. Who can enroll? It's actually, it would cost $99 to enroll, and then the parents at that point would go on to the website, and they pay directly into the tour company. The school rules are highly enforced. This is definitely not, especially taking students through 9 through 12. This is not a trip that that anything's allowed that would not be allowed in school. Okay. As for the chaperones, basically, I will not be taking the parents, and the reason that I would not be asking the parents is, first of all, who do you choose that I could take compared to who I wouldn't, and for the most important reason is that teachers basically know, well, not know, they've come to have a bond with a student. They know they've been in situations where there's a large group of kids, and on that note, it is actually one chaperone per 6 kids. So it is very, very small, and the tour company allows 42 students and 7 chaperones. I'm not going to go through what to pack. This trip basically is, I get a smile over there. This trip is basically $3,500. I really pushed this, I'm sorry, parents. I really pushed this to get on this agenda because I'm trying to save the students $200 if they can lock in by November 1st. And thank you again. Totally appreciate you allowing me to be here. For curfew, basically, they're in their room. I mean, they're technically, they're with us the whole time. I mean, they're with us the whole time, and the only time coming back into the hotel, we would be checking bags. Actually, is there any questions you have? Because I don't really want to waste your time. I think I outlined everything.
Is there anyone that has any questions at this time? Mrs. McLaughlin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. When would you, I know you said you'd like everybody to enroll by November 1st, but just say they didn't, when would you say, okay, we either can go ahead or we can't? Was it based on a number? Are you envisioning a number?
As a parent that sent two students, myself, I put in here May 31st, I would like it wrapped up, because in fairness to the parents, it gives them plenty of time to pay for this. And how I did it was, I put like $100 down, 50, some parents paid in full. So yeah, I would probably have to say like around May. And that was another reason I jumped on this. Basically, it really gave the parents a lot of time to plan this.
Mrs. Quinney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there any particular group you're targeting? I know 9 through 12, but going to Italy, is there a specific reason behind
Education. I'm also a history teacher, and yes, I mean, really, Colosseum, I mean, it's Italy. I don't know what to say. 9 through 12, I took some students that were AP students, and after going through euros, pounds, and chronos, and they said to me, Mrs. Kamada, 350 chronos. I personally don't feel comfortable taking middle school students. And the reason I would take 9 through 12 is basically my 8th graders, I love them. They're going to be 9th graders, and anybody that's a behavioral, I'm sorry, I personally wouldn't want to take them. Absolutely not.
Thank you.
Dr. D'Amico?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you have any upper limits on the number of students?
42 students.
42 is the...
And the reason it's 42 students is basically the buses, the transportation overseas. I want the kids with me. I want the chaperones with me. I don't want to split us up. Absolutely not.
And how are you going to work on selecting, for example? Let's assume you get 120 that want to go.
It's basically 42. That's it. When 42, I have 42, it's 42. I'm also going to be holding a presentation in the auditorium. Once I was approved through you people, I did call this company and ask them if they could send me the flyers. I spoke to Mrs. Allen, and I didn't really want to do anything till you okayed it. And at that point, I would call the kids down, talk to them, and I would have a formal meeting with the parents. And as you can see, it covers everything.
So it's really going to be first come,
It
first
has
serve?
to be. It has to be, yes.
Until it's full,
Until it's full.
even if it's
And
not
if we can get
by-
42 kids, I'll see you back next year. Different place, but we'll see you back next year.
My next question is really about the price.
Okay.
This number
Yep.
is a very,
When-
very significant.
It
Just
is.
Just a second. $3,500, if you start paying now, that's almost a car payment a month. That's not to be said that it can be done. We've done it before. We have taken students overseas. Have you thought or planned, or do you intend to, on fundraising activities, and how are you going to help offset this
Okay.
cost?
All right, as for fundraising, I just joined the PBIS. I've been a class advisor 3 times, and that's never been an issue, fundraising for me, if we have to do this. If I had a student that came up to me and said, I really can't do this, but I really want to go, we'll find a way. We will find a way. As a parent myself, I said to my son and then my daughter, basically, I'll do the best I can. There was a $99, and I just kept plugging away, and honestly, I don't know how I did it either, but it does. I mean, I guess if you have a goal and if you have a due date, you're good. You're good. But as for fundraising, I raised $2,000 for a carnival that I did at a different school, and had everything donated. I don't know. I can do this. This isn't an issue. I can fundraise if they need me to.
I love your excitement. I really do. I think we need people getting excited and doing these activities, and, you know.
When I came to Southbridge, the first thing I said to Buzz was I wanted to do this. And he told me to wait next year and just get in there and...
My last question pertains still to finances, because I think everything else is very doable, obviously, and it's a lot easier than finances. Is there such a thing as a deadline by the company at which they expect to have at least half of money already up front so they don't incur cost, or?
Basically, this is really feasible. It really is. I wouldn't have believed if I didn't do it myself twice. I have 4 kids of my own, and I was driving a school bus, and I was able to do it. My husband was in construction, and basically, I will be happy to do the fundraising. Again, it has to be paid in full within 90 days before we depart. And, say that again?
Is there a sooner deadline by which they would want to see
No,
half
that's
of the
why-
money?
that's
or?
why- No, that's why, that was another reason why I approached this, so you would have more than like 9 months to do this. It's actually, if I'm correct, $190 per month is what it ends up being, if I'm correct. Yeah, yeah. And if there's any typos, I apologize, I did this quickly today.
Dr. D'Amico, I can answer that question for
Please.
you. I just experienced working with EF Tours. My daughter in March went to New Zealand and Australia with EF Tours, and they do everything on the computer. You can put as big of a down payment as you want on a credit card, and then they work out all the payments, monthly payments that they directly take out of your checking. So you can have as low payments as you want, depending on your lump sum, or you could have as high as you want, and you can look everything up on the computer. You get their itinerary, everything. It's the best company that I've ever experienced with kids. And my daughter was 15, and they went with a group of 20 kids, and the tour guide stays with them all the time. They don't get lost. My daughter's luggage did, but but it's an excellent company. They really work well with the parents to make it as easy as possible for them to be able to give their child this opportunity to go out of the country. And passports probably took longer than anything else, is getting a passport for your kid to go out there. Thank you.
Basically, it's everything you need is in here. This is exactly that we'll be going home to the parents. Everything. From how you pay to, let me run this by the parents. Okay, this pamphlet basically says, what exactly is a Europe trip? Gives you the answer. What is the educational value of the trip? Who is a tour operator you are using, and why did you choose this company over EF Tours, which John, hands down, both companies are awesome. How much the trip costs? What does the price include? Everything except lunch. When are payments due? How much spending money do students need? What if I cancel? When can I enroll for this trip? How do I enroll? Who is eligible to go on this trip? What are the rules on this trip? I'm going too fast, sorry.
No, no, I think, yep.
Sorry.
That's good.
Sorry to cut in. I just want to add, I think educationally, this is a great opportunity for those students that are able to do it. I lived in Italy for 3 years, and there's experiences that they can have in all core subject areas. All of our great mathematicians and scientists, and many are from Italy. Just the language, Italian is so similar to French and Spanish, which our students take here. English, all of Shakespeare's plays are set in Italian settings, and Verona, you know, where Romeo and Juliet's homes are in the books, it's just an amazing educational opportunity. I just want to say that. And as far as the behavioral issue, per the rules and per our handbook, it's the same thing if students are in any kind of, or have any kind of issue prior to a school event, and this would be considered a school-sponsored event. So if a student had been suspended prior, they would be ineligible for a trip like this. So, you know, those things would be taken into consideration. Sometimes, you know, students misbehave, but that's not going to exclude them. This is open to everybody. The only thing that would exclude them is violations of the handbook policy prior to the trip. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions tonight?
I'd like to say thank you, nicely said. I'm a little nervous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our list of presentations is a request to Spain in spring of 2014. Mr. Jonathan Matusco, Foreign Language Department Head and teacher of the Southbridge Middle High School. Welcome.
Thank you. I want to start off as well by saying thank you to the committee for having me on your agenda, for taking time out of your schedule. My name is John Matusco. I am the department chair of languages over at the middle high school. I came to Southbridge about 2 years ago. Well, this is my second year in Southbridge after a career teaching high school. I learned Spanish from a book. I did. I sat in a classroom and we conjugated verbs and we did exercises and we filled in blanks and we listened to tape recordings, and if we were lucky we got to see, you know, a Spanish video, and somehow I managed to fall in love with the language. It wasn't really until I went to Spain in the beginning of college that I got a full understanding that there was life out there. I knew there was life out there, I knew there were people out there, but to see it, to hear it, to be in places where you need another language to succeed, where this was these people's lives, their culture, their everything we try to bring to the kids, I've never forgotten that first impression of getting off the plane. I've come to adore middle school. Like I said, I was a high school teacher, but in and amongst middle school kids has just really, I found my home here at the middle school and with these kids. And I want to bring something I love to kids who have quickly gathered my heart, my passion, my soul. I want to bring this opportunity to the kids who may not have this opportunity at some point in their lives. Yes, we have a high Hispanic population, we do. But the culture of Spain is entirely different from that of Puerto Rico. It's different from that of the Dominican Republic, that of the family culture. And I'd really like the opportunity to bring that to every student, not just the Hispanic students, through this trip. I have given you a very brief handout. If you take a look, it is a week-long tour that would take us through Madrid, the capital. It would take you to Seville in the south, back to Madrid. And there are 2 optional side trips, which I have personally been on this tour myself, through Cordoba and through Segovia. This trip, again, it being middle school would be something new in that I've been on the high school trip. That being said, with it being a middle school trip, I can guarantee it would be heavily chaperoned. Heavily chaperoned. I do plan on forming a committee, upon approval from the school committee preliminarily, a committee of parents, students, and faculty, anybody that's interested in going forward on this, to best strategize how to carry this off. I plan on asking parents to chaperone, because I can only, my nightmare would be to have an 11-year-old in Spain start to be upset because their parent isn't nearby. You know, I can understand that it's going to be, and I'm a parent myself, and I would feel better as an educator and as a parent, having parents have the opportunity to bring children who may not have even been out of Southbridge into a different country. If you take a look at your brochure, I've given you the covers of the teacher's handbook, but this is a preliminary guide for myself to follow. If you take a look, I have also given you the cover of the enrollment handbook, which is the standard enrollment handbook for the student to follow, and the insurance package, which provides them optional safety insurance and trip insurance. To piggyback on something that Chairwoman Woodruff said, this EF Tours does do most of their work online. Parents are able to access and see the tour. They're able to watch videos. They'll know exactly where their students are going. They're able to make whatever deposits they can online. But to counteract the high cost, because this trip is somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,500, $2,600 for a week long, I plan on immediately upon receiving preliminary approval, start fundraising with the kids. I have a group of kids who are very anxious to get this going, very anxious. They're anxious to wash cars, rake leaves, shovel snow, do what it takes. And I firmly believe that if we bring a large enough money amount in, even if it's not a full amount, it will help defray the cost. I really, really aim to make this as affordable to as many kids as possible. I don't want to exclude everybody. That being said, I do plan on taking this trip in February if we can get this together. If there aren't enough kids interested, I am planning to ask to postpone the trip. EF Tours, I've spoken to EF Tours about this, and they do say that any money put down will not be lost. This will put down, we can move the date with enough notice. There will not be any cancellation fees. There will not be any movement problems of the trip with this. So any parent that puts money down, any sort of arrangements that are made, as long as there's enough notice given, there won't be any problems in moving the date. I had planned on coming before the school committee last year to present this, but there was a lot going on. The middle school language program is new at the middle school. I did have a lot of work to do. I did have some things going on outside which prevented me. So again, I thank you for taking me this early in the year, and I won't take any more of your time.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Mrs. Donovan?
Thank you. Thank you, Senora.
You're welcome.
My first question is just for clarification on the dates, because the handout that we have states April, and I believe in the school I had seen the poster that said
My
April, you
apologies,
said
it is
February?
April. If I said February, that's my mistake. It is April.
It is April?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so that being said, and if that date were to be postponed, when you first said February, and then you said if it didn't work out, it would be okay, you wouldn't lose money, and we would just
Correct.
reschedule. Where, do you have a date from this point that you would reschedule
Well,
to? Is this happen to be
if
like?
this trip in April gets postponed, I would have to look at what's coming up. I haven't led
Okay.
a school trip in the summer, and the reason that we chose April was because of the vacation and because the climate is obviously better than traipsing through. You know, the kids are outside a lot. We're taking a lot of walking tours, and in April it's a lot more agreeable than in February. They do run trips at the end of the year. So, you know, we can push it towards June, we can push it into beginning. I'm not so sure about the middle of the summer. I would have to talk about that, especially because it wouldn't be during a school-sanctioned time, but if it falls towards the end of the year. These are things that I would have to look into, get clarification on, and certainly present to the committee.
Okay. Another question that I have, and it was similar to Ms. Kamadi, sorry about that. Relative to liability insurance, I know in your form that you filled out, you had contacted the company and they said that they carry the insurance, so if anything would happen, there's no liability that would fall upon the district. Is that same, do you know if that same applies to this tour?
It absolutely does hold true. And if any parent or family member is concerned about optional insurance, there is even optional safety insurance so that the parent's health insurance would not be as taxed should something happen. Clearly, nothing's going to happen, but in that rare event.
Okay. And then like the other field trip that was just presented, there's almost like a maximum of 42 students and 7 chaperones. Do you have a max number that you?
I do not. I have been on this tour alone, and the last time I went on this tour, there were 87. And the ratio is 1 to 6, so for every 6, there would be 1 chaperone. So EF Tours is very flexible. The only thing we would need is another bus. I can appreciate Mrs. Camarda's comments about wanting to keep the group close, but I feel that with the proper amount of parents and supervision that the number is however many kids want to go.
And just one more question.
Sure.
I haven't had time to look through your packet. I apologize for that because we had just
Not at
received
all.
it. But I'm just thinking about lodging and accommodations. Do you stay in hostels or?
No, we stay in hotels. EF Tours
Okay.
will book you a hotel, and it is a 4-star or better hotel by European standard, which for us is probably a 2 to 3-star hotel. And the students the cost of the trip includes the hotel at any location. It includes transportation to and from the hotel. And the students are grouped in, it's either 3 or 4 depending on the numbers. If it's a smaller group, it may be 2 per room. If it's a slightly larger group, it could be 3, as many as 4.
Okay.
So they're in safe and secure. These are public hotels that are reserved exclusively. There are rooms exclusively for the tour. They give us a block of rooms, so you wouldn't find students on the 2nd floor and on the 4th floor. On every trip I've been in, it's all been the same hallway. And students, like Mrs. Camarda said, are in their rooms at a set curfew time, and chaperones are in the hallways.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, through you to the speaker. The approximate cost of this trip, do you have an idea?
We are looking somewhere between $2,500 to $2,750. It's a shorter trip than the trip proposed to Italy, so it would be a smaller cost.
Okay.
The cost of the trip, just to reiterate, includes transportation to and from Europe, includes all transportation within the trip to any major event, every admission that the kids get on any side trip. Now, the cost that I've quoted you does not include the optional side trips. If the parents and the general information that we get back states that they would like the optional trips, the cost naturally will be a little higher. But any cost they pay includes they are fed 2 meals a day, their hotel, all admissions, all transportation, and everything else is taken through. The only money they would need with them would be optional spending and perhaps something small to tip any tour guide that we have.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Can I just say, I appreciate both you and Mrs. Camarda taking this on. We have a great big world out there, and I think sometimes we don't think that our kids have opportunities to do something like this, and I think it's more attainable than we think it is, though the money is certainly a barrier, and for some of our families, for sure. So if we can do anything to offset that cost, there's a lot to absorb here and to read through.
Absolutely.
So
I can certainly, if it pleases the committee, forward the EF Tour site that they have set up for me so that you all have some sort of access to look over what the trip entails. If you'd like me to do so, I'll be happy to do that in the next couple of days. I can forward it perhaps to one person, or if there are other links. And I guess I would just like to say it is a big undertaking, and I know that with middle schoolers, it does present a challenge. It does. I'm going gray. It's fallen out, and I've only been here a year. But I really think that at this age, they're very, very, very impressionable. And I think that if we make a positive impression on them, that's what we strive for. If we can take them to somewhere like that and let them see that outside of the city, outside of their town, outside of their apartments, outside of their homes, outside of their neighborhoods, there are people, there are worlds, and there's lots of things that's something they'll remember for the rest of their life. I echo Mrs. Camarda's comments that it's something that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dr. Domingo and then Mrs. Congdon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no doubt that you have probably provided all sorts of information. Unfortunately, I don't see a quarter of what you have mentioned in our packet, and I don't know where we have copies of a few cover pages of
Yes,
the documents you mentioned. We really don't have much more than that. But more importantly, I know that you're seeking approval by the school committee, and Madam Chair, we have not received any paperwork requesting so.
I have not received the paperwork from Katie, so I would probably suggest that we get the paperwork and put it on our next meeting for a vote.
Nothing to do with you, probably. I
No,
don't know.
if I can clarify, I was unsure as to what I needed to present to you, whether or not I was to do a larger scale presentation. I was simply coming to ask permission to pursue these things. Any information that you need, you will certainly have, including cost, including more materials. I'll be happy to forward full copies of all of these brochures, all of these, everything that we need, very shortly.
Thank you. Anything else, Dr. Domingo?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Mrs. Congdon and then...
Through you, Madam Chair, just a comment. I just wanted to say that when I was in high school at Southbridge High, Mr. Doobie, one of the French teachers, did EF tours, and I had that opportunity to go on a trip with him, and so many students looked forward to those trips each year, and every year he would do a different trip based on what the kids wanted, and I just wanted to thank both of you for having that passion to start this, because it really helped kind of mold my life and put that travel bug in me, and I've traveled a lot of places, and it was all because of going on that trip my junior year to France and Spain. So I'm in favor of this. I think it's great for the students and the kids of our district to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yeah, just one quick note. Policy Subcommittee and this board last March voted in a new field trip policy. And for international travel, it was that we, beginning the outset of a trip, we were asking that anybody interested in doing that come before the school committee, do a presentation, kind of get a conditional approval with a final approval about, I think it's 6 weeks? Is it 6 weeks before the actual trip when all the arrangements had been finalized?
Absolutely.
So I don't know that we're prepared to vote on this tonight. Right.
I certainly am not asking you to vote on this evening. It is my full intention to submit all of the proper materials ahead of my trip to inform the committee what the exact costs, what the exact plans are. This is a preliminary statement of my interest in chaperoning a trip.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Moving on with our presentations this evening, we have Food Service Program Overview and Summer Feeding Program. Ms. Katie Alicia, our Food Service Director.
Good evening, everyone. In your packets that you should all have there, I have an overview of the summer feeding program that I came to you about earlier in the spring, about my concerns about what's happened in the past. And my idea is how we can get the program growing and how we can get on top of it. On the front page there's a breakdown with a couple notes there of what the losses were over the last couple years, and behind that you're going to see all this stuff, all the information on all our expenses, all the information on the meals served at all the locations, the average daily participation, all the meal counts, the reimbursements that we got back from the state. After all is said and done, this year we raised $7,155.77. And that was with a lot of changes from what we've had in the past. I know last year they did 9 weeks. We cut it back down to 6 weeks, which is what it was originally. This way it gave me time to close out the regular school year, get the program going, close out the summer program, get the regular school year going. From what I hear, the 9-week program was just too much. It was literally roll out of school, start summer, and there was no time to close up one shop and then open the next. So a couple things that we did change is that we focused on lunch this year. We only had breakfast at a couple of the, I put the wrong thing on the top there. That top one up there should say only served breakfast at the Grow School, YMCA, and Cops and Kids. Those 3 locations had absolutely zero labor costs to us because the YMCA, the people that were in charge of the Summer Fund program, they're the ones that did the labor there. We packed up the meals, we sent it to them, they served them, they did all the paperwork over there. The same thing with Grow and Cops and Kids. We cut back on the labor huge. My production manager was Lynn Rochon this year, and she's a stickler for the rules. Any of you that might know her, she's like, you're done, go home. There's no messing around. You come here, you work, you get the job done, it's done, go home. I don't need you. So she was great to have there because she's very strict with that and stuff. So big thanks to Pete Canoyer from Big Bunny Market, who allowed us to purchase all of our produce at cost with the condition that our driver picked up the produce at the market. Great deal for me. It's right in town. It's not like he had to go very far. After making a trip at West Street, boom, produce, right back at the school. Let me see, the new sites, we did the Bridge of Faith Youth Center on Main Street, which is run by Esteban Carrasco. He's the one that reached out to me. He's like, hey, can we do this? He loved it. He had about anywhere between like 25 and up kids. He actually opened the youth center earlier during those 6 weeks. Normally he would open it 3 to 6. he opened it earlier for those 6 weeks so he can get kids in to eat meals. We also had, the rec program was back at West Street, which was a huge hit. We had a bunch of kids there that were there doing their summer stuff in the fields, and then they come and eat lunch, and then they go on their way. Last year they were closed, so that was a huge hit. And also the management at Brookside Terrace offered to take over the serving this year. Last year and the previous years, our employees would go down there and do the serving, and they were doing the paperwork and whatnot. So Wanda Virouette, who works in the management office there, she's the one that took over for that. So that also helped on labor costs. I think that one of the big things that really helped was focusing on lunch this year, because that is what brought in most of the numbers last year. I'm trying to come up with ways maybe next year to bring breakfast back, if maybe somehow we could work with like the NHS and the student council, kids that are looking for community service that might be willing to give up an hour of their morning to do this, because it's going to look great on a college application or whatnot, helping out the summer feeding program within the school district. So instead of sending one of my people down there for an hour and a half doing that, then they have to come back to the school or make the sandwiches or whatnot, the meals there, and get them ready by themselves, that was just a large hit on labor. So I'm trying to come up with ways, and I think that maybe getting some of the older, more mature students to help volunteer. I mean, it's simple paperwork. You count the kids that go through, how many meals you have, how many you served, how many are left. Easy addition, subtraction, that's it. So I think moving forward for next year, that's something that I would really like to look into, getting in touch with those advisors and possibly doing something like that. So, yeah, that's the summer feeding stuff. I know there's some questions, and thanks for the heads up on that.
Let me just say, when we were planning this program for this coming summer, we looked at previous years, and every one of those previous years had a negative cash flow. And so rather than trying to be all things to all people, school committee said, let's organize the program, manage it more efficiently, and provide the services where they were most needed rather than spreading it all out. And there was really no reason for us to be deflecting regular ed dollars to support a program that should be supporting itself and making a profit. So I want to commend Katie for the great work that she's done. She's organized it, staff is there, and we ended up with a plus 7,000 rather than last year was minus 7,100, the year before was minus 8,000, and so on. So this is one of the steps that we've taken to organize and coordinate our food service program. So I just wanted to compliment her publicly, and her staff are doing a great job.
Thank you, Buzz.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. Any other? Mrs. McLaughlin?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Katie. I've spoken to you outside of this meeting and told you that I knew that this program could work if it was run well, and you've proved that to be true. So sincerely, a big thank you for you. The profit that was made, where will this money go? I don't know if it's designated or not, but I know I've seen other school districts do things like plant herb gardens or plant some type of gardens. I think last year I proposed maybe buying some fruit trees for the property up there so that the kids could see the fruit grow and benefit from the fruit. But does this have to go somewhere in particular?
I don't have anywhere particular, just the food service program in itself, just to help out the program.
It's part of the revolving account for food services, and food service is not part of the Chapter 70 budget. And in every district I worked in, the food services made a profit, and they were able to buy the refrigerators, the freezers, the vehicles, and all of those things that they need to operate a system effectively and efficiently. That's our goal, so we can buy some new vehicles and make sure all of our contracts are of the proper quality that we provide food service, and then we also have the resources that we continue to operate effectively and efficiently. That's where it goes. Revolving account, food service is a separate item.
Any other questions this evening? Mrs. Quinney?
Madam Chair, through you to Ms. Alicia. I know in the past we've talked about regarding the regular school lunch program. What is the current federal reimbursement rate for a lunch?
I got them for you.
So these are for kids that have free lunch.
This is for everybody. It's actually, the top page there is from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. There's one for the recording lady, too. And it tells you there basically what the reimbursements are for everything, what you're getting from the state, what you're getting from the federal, and it breaks it down, how much you're getting for the free students, how much you're getting for the reduced, and how much you're getting for the paid students. And I also, because you had sent me an email asking, I also went to, this is something that I've actually, Roland and I and Karen, we've already talked about this. We're looking into how to initiate the price increase. On the second page, you're going to see a breakdown of, I reached out to a lot of district managers in the area that I personally know that I work with, that I reach out to. I emailed them actually first thing this morning when I saw your email. A lot of them emailed me back right away. And a couple of them I was just able to just go on their school websites and get their prices of how much they charge for their school lunches. And after that is also a couple memos from the state stating what they require the meal prices to be. We are a little behind, but that's something that the three of us are working on moving forward with.
Anything else, Mrs. Quinney?
I just, I'm reading that.
At the same time, we made a concerted effort to get our students to fill a family plan so we can adequately tabulate and get reimbursed for all of our students. For example, our elementary schools are Title I eligible, and our middle school isn't. It made no sense to me whatsoever when I asked that question. It just seems that the forms weren't being distributed and collected in a way that we would have our middle schools and so on, all our sites Title I eligible, because there's a lot of federal dollars in it. So we did a little program. We had some ice cream parties for the homerooms that did it and so on. So we tried to push that so we could get the maximum of federal funds that we're eligible for. So that's one of the things, and then we'll have a report on that. And the second page regarding the lunch prices, I think that needs a little more conversation. We'll bring that back in a couple of months to look carefully at what our prices are, and what our costs are to ensure that we are in the red. No, in the black, right?
No.
I'm just joking.
Anyone else? Are you all set? Mrs. Congdon?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Ms. Alicia. In regards to this year, in regards to the collection of payments, how is that going?
It's kind of up and down. Right now, we're a little over 5,000 in the negative, and that's just students that are enrolled. We have over 2,000 owed to us from students that are unenrolled that have left the district for whatever, whether they moved or whatnot. So that's money that you're never going to see. I mean, some of the families we did get forwarding addresses to, we do continue to send them bills. So, but right now, especially it was just under 5,000 at the beginning of the year, but with the beginning of the school year, the amount of time that it actually takes to do the applications, like legit, the application stack is like this big, and three of us working on it nonstop, around the clock. We're still actually sending out the letters for the kids that were automatically free because of the system and whatnot. So we're still sending out some of those letters. Like I said, three of us I mean, with me trying to do my other stuff, I'm helping out with that a little bit, stuffing envelopes, getting these letters printed out and whatnot. So we do have the cheese sandwich policy, which I brought to you guys earlier this year, and we haven't implemented that at the elementary school yet until we get all those letters out and all the parents know. We did send out with the older kids, like 7 through 12, they knew the rules last year, so they know it now, so we're sticking to it. And the sixth graders we're lenient with because it was a little different for them at the elementary school. But tomorrow is actually the last day for the deadline, and we've had an announcement made at the middle high school. Don't forget to get your applications in. Tomorrow's the last day. If you were free from last year and you have not filled out a new application, you're now going to be paid. So starting tomorrow, if they have those 3 charges, they're going to get an alternate meal. It still meets the requirements for a meal. It's going to be a cheese sandwich. They have to take a fruit or a vegetable and a milk. So it's still, so we can still get a reimbursement for it, but they're going to remember, oh, I had to eat a cheese sandwich. I need to get money. I need to pay this off. And then sometimes you do have, especially elementary, oh, I want a cheese sandwich today. But for the most part, the kids do remember they go home because they know that it was kind of a punishment per se. And It does stink because it's not their fault, but it's the way to get the message to the parents because you know they're going to go home and say it. So we really are working on that. I mean, since I've gotten here, that's more than cut in half.
Great.
That negative balance right there, because it was crazy before.
Anything else?
Another question through you, Madam Chair. Do you think that in the future, maybe in order to, will we have a chance to do like online payments?
I have looked into it, as I've told you before, I have looked into it, but the Treasury Office and the company itself, Heartland Payments, they kind of can't get on board with stuff. I'm trying to get them to not fold, but help us out in what the treasurer is asking for and able to do this. So I've kind of been going back and forth with them about that, with Heartland Payments, not the treasurer's office. I know what she wants. I'm trying to get them to go with it. So it is something that I do want in the future, because I know personally, my future stepson, he has it where he goes to school, and it just makes life so much easier because I can set it up for myself to remind me when he hits. I can pick my own price. I have it remind me at $15. Once he gets under $15, email, boom, Dylan has only $11.26 left. All right, I know I have to get that on there. And then I can actually go back and look and see what he's been purchasing and whatnot, so I can make sure that he's not going crazy and buying 5 meals in a day. So, you know what I mean? And it would cut down the amount of phone calls, because that's a very typical phone call that we get. How much does my kid have? Can you tell me what he's getting? Can you print out his account balance? Can you print out his transactions and what? It would cut back on a lot of that stuff. So it is something that I really do want. I'm really pushing for it. I'm trying to get it in, so.
Last question, through you, Madam Chair. What's usually served for the breakfast?
At the middle high school, it's basically a quick grab-and-go kind of breakfast, because there is literally, at the middle high school, they have 25 minutes, and this is for every single kid in that school, over 1,000 kids have the option to run through this line, and the same thing with the elementary school. They have 25 to 30 minutes for all these kids to go through the line. So it's basic grab-and-go stuff. We have muffins, cereal, graham crackers, yogurt, string cheese. At the middle high school, we do have some little Pillsbury cinnamon buns, apple danishes, and then they have the milk and juice. But and it's basically the same thing at the elementary school, except we don't have any of the hotter options because of the time restraints. It's literally like when the ladies get there, they just put everything out, and then the kids come through the line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I just wanted to congratulate you, Ms. Alicia, on a job well done for that profit. That's something we haven't seen in a very, very long time, and I do appreciate your effort with that, truly. And the only follow-up question that I had was, as far as the areas that we did serve this year for lunch, do you anticipate that we will have those same areas again, or do you?
Yes,
is it too early
all
to
of
tell?
those areas, all of them did really good. And like Brookside Terrace, they're low numbers, and I initially didn't want to open it back up, but Wanda was like, come on, please. That's why she was like, okay, I'll do it. I want to open it back up. Hey, you're taking the labor away from me? That's perfectly fine, because to send somebody there, it wasn't cost efficient to send one of my employees over there for the 11 to 15 meals a day, you know? So her taking that over was able to still continue feeding those children over there. So that was a big help. Everything, cops and kids, obviously, that's huge.
Right.
You know, he has, breakfast-wise, his numbers are a little lower because kids want to sleep in, but come lunchtime, his numbers were easily, some days, up past 100, especially on a field trip day, you know, because he had 160 kids enrolled in his program. It doesn't mean they show up every day,
Right.
but they all did sign up for the field trips. So those days were huge. Basically all the schools, Eastford Road, they had the smallest program going on, but the other schools, Charlton Street, there was some days we were making 80-plus meals for Charlton Street because they had so many programs going on there, and more kids were enrolling as the summer was going, so their programs were getting bigger. But yeah, everything, as long as, especially with West Street, if they keep up with the rec program, we will definitely keep it open. Last year, the reason it was closed, because they did open it, but like 1 or 2 kids were showing up. So that's why they closed it, because it wasn't profitable to keep it open for that few amount of people. So as long as the rec program is there, it's worth,
Right.
When there's something there,
It's easier.
it's so much easier. Like there's a couple programs where, a couple of the locations where like at Eastwood Road, there was a mother across the street. She brought her 2 young kids every day. You know, it was literally right across the street for her. And why not take advantage of it? At Charlton Street, there was a lady that watched a couple kids. She would show up with like 6 kids a day because she's like, yeah, it's right there. Mine as well.
Right.
You know, so it's more the programs that really help this going on, the things that are going on itself. Not that the only place like the library, they had a lot of walk-ins. They got so much stuff. I was able to use a lot of grant money to buy stuffs for all of these locations, whether it be arts and crafts supplies or like board games. I got like Guinness World Record flashcards and stuff like that.
That's great.
So I was able to use a lot of that money. It was with the DOE gave me a grant, and so did Project Bread. So I was actually able to get some kitchen equipment that I was going to need to help out with the summer program. But I used a majority of it on like footballs and soccer balls and hula hoops, and I tried to give them out wherever need be. They even had a SPED program going on at the middle high school. I gave some of that to Johnny Vargas, who was working there, and Dave Burris. I said, hey, you guys want some of this stuff? And I'd go outside, and they'd be outside playing with them, doing all the time, you know, get them out of the classroom a little bit, and they were going outside and taking full advantage of all these things. And Project Bread gave us like these coloring sheets of things that had to do with school nutrition and eating stuff. So I got big like crayon boxes with different color crayons and color pencils and markers so the kids can color while they're there eating and whatnot. So I think that helps out too, giving them something to do while they're there.
Very good.
So.
Very, very good. Thank you, Katie. Thank you,
Anyone
Madam
else?
Chair.
Dr. O'Leary?
Just not to belabor your presentation, Ms. Alicia, but thank you very much. I've been able to see a number of times with this very issue over the years, and not taking anything away from other people's efforts, it didn't seem to have the results that you're having. So I appreciate your enthusiasm and diligence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've really pushed the promotion of it. I sent letters home to all the houses. I put flyers up. Literally, I had one girl literally just drive around all day putting flyers everywhere. She's like, I'm like, whatever I didn't think of on the list, if you see it and they let you hang it up, hang it up. She's like, I hit up the laundromats, I hit up the barber shop. She went everywhere, and we did the best that we could. I had Mark from the newspaper come down and do a huge article on it. I'm like, I don't want a little advertisement. Give me a huge article. You know, try to really get it out there. So I think that was a big help, and knowing the hot spots, being from town, you know. So I gave the Catholic Charities, gave them stuff because obviously there's a huge target right there. So
Thank you, Katie, very much for coming tonight and giving us all
I
that
have more
wonderful
stuff.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Because I know last time there was questions on the menu at the last meeting.
No?
I think
That's been well answered, yeah.
regarding the-
That was mine. I'm
Oh,
all
okay.
set with that.
Kids
Thank
like
you.
French toast.
It's all fine.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, well, there is just some stuff in there for you too, some sample menus, and then also just a copy of the guidelines, the federal guidelines on what.
And I learned that the
Dr.
kids
O'Leary.
can get an alternate as well.
What was
Yeah,
that?
The kids can get an alternate as well. I learned that after the
Yeah.
fact. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you, Katie, very
All right.
much.
thank you.
All right, moving on, we have the next presentation, the MCAS results 2012-2013 school year. Mr. Bisan Neberko and the members of the district leadership.
We're going to sit out there and bring the entire team up, and then we'll make the presentation so the school committees can see us and ask us questions as we proceed with that. And it'll be on the screen in the back for the public to view. So we'll just take a second for us to reorganize.
We'll just take a 5-minute recess then, Mike, on that till they can get set up. Thank you.
It's a pretty good view to take a look at all you guys
Like my new jewelry, bought new jewelry.
from down here.
I noticed those. We're just waiting for a couple more members to come back, and then we'll get right on it. Yeah, Tanya's smoking. In the men's room. I don't know, the ladies' room. It's coming up the stairs. In just a second. We're going to start without Tanya. All right, I guess we'll get back from recess and get started on the MCAS scores.
Thank you for this opportunity to present the scores. As you can see, that this is a team effort, and behind me are sitting members of the district leadership team, the principals, the directors, and so on. And in order for any school system to be successful, everyone has to own the product. And in too many places, the director of curriculum or the superintendent will come up and make the entire presentation regarding MCAS, and the perception of the community and the public is that person owns all of that. We're going to do it differently, and as we go through this, different people will come up and speak about that. The first thing is that we recognize the audience for this evening's presentation is the school committee and the public. So I want to make sure that we all understand exactly what we're talking about here and clarify that. First off, it's MCAS, Massachusetts Comprehensive Assessment System. It was part of a great radical experiment in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in 1993 when it totally revamped how school committees would work, how school systems would operate, and more importantly, the funding that came with it with the necessary accountability. And some of you that were around remember all of the brouhaha about the MCAS and controversy surrounding having a required curriculum, and there was a number of people and so on attacking that program. I was superintendent in Western Massachusetts at that time, and that was probably the epicenter for revolts from Amherst, Northampton, and so on regarding that. Time has proven that innovators and people who are willing to take chances succeed. Criticism is easy. I think I've said this before. I've traveled all over the world as the presentation was here and so on. And on my travels, I've seen statues and thanks to great people who took risks were criticized and so on. And on my travels, I never saw a statue to a critic. So very easy. So I want to just say that. So the MCAS test has three purposes. First one is to evaluate student, school, and district performance. Number two, to inform and improve curriculum and instruction. And three, to determine eligibility for graduation. That was probably the most controversial. In order to be eligible for a high school diploma, you must have passed MCAS. If not, you get a certificate of attendance. Who and what is tested? Originally, it was 4, 8, and 10. And then with No Child Left Behind legislation, it was increased. So all students in grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 are tested annually in English language arts and mathematics. And then a science and technology component was added a few years ago for grades 5, 8, and 10. The performance levels on this test, it's not a 0 to 100 or a simple pass-fail. It's 200 to 280, and we constantly hear these performance bands. They are advanced, and I think it's important to understand what that means. Students at this level demonstrate a comprehensive and an in-depth understanding of the rigorous subject matter and provide sophisticated solutions to complex problems. Order score advanced, and we had 20-some students that I was proud to talk about, who were Abigail and John Adams Scholars, and there were students who performed at advanced and proficient levels, and we had 6 students that performed advanced in both. Proficient is students at this level demonstrate a solid understanding of challenging subject matter and solve a wide variety of problems, and their scale score points range from 240 to 258. The 2 areas that are insufficient as far as the Commonwealth is concerned is needs improvement. Students at this level demonstrate a partial understanding of subject matter and solve some simple problems. Their score range is 220 to 238. Warning for grades 3 to 8, failing for high school. Students at this level demonstrate a minimal understanding of subject matter and do not solve simple problems, and their range is 200 to 218. So when we look at the next slide, what we thought we would do is look at 5 years of data rather than looking at just this year's data and see what trends are there. The generally accepted trend line is at least 3 years of information in order to make a trend valid. So when you look at this, you'll see that from 09 to 13, we've plateaued. 2010, we had 44% of our students proficient, and in 13, 32%. Last 12 was 36%, 36%, and so on. But when you look at the needs improvement and failure rates, that's the one I think that we all need to be concerned with, the fact that too many students are not proficient in ELA over the course of the last 5-year period. If you add those numbers up, they're within a range of 4 or 5 points. So that's very consistent in that. The next chart, which is more disturbing, is the English language learners chart. And this is one area that we've spent a lot of time discussing, looking at why it's like this and so on. As you can see, that from 09-10, 42% of our students who are English language learners failed or needs improvement, and 12 and 13, 11, 12, and 13, 61, 63, and 64% failed. Again, things haven't changed for a long time here. Go ahead. Math, similar discouraging news. We made a 4% improvement in the failure from the year before, but if you look at it, it goes from the last 3 years, students with disabilities, ELA 5-year, and that's, again, completely unacceptable. If you look at the bottom lines, 0 students were proficient or advanced. Math, the 5-year rolling average. Again, when I was superintendent in Brockton, one of the first things I did was I looked at the math scores. And the math supervisor was there, and I said, 56% of our 8th graders are failing, and another 15 or 20. What are we going to do about it? So we made a major investment and focus on improving mathematics instruction, and we were successful. And we improved it by 30% in a 3-year period. Math here, English language learners, this is what I was looking at before. We have failed the English language learners in this district. When we have 1% and 2% and 1% and 6% the year before being advanced and proficient in mathematics, obviously you would kind of expect that language scores would be less, but math is generally language neutral. Not always, but when you have 73% fail and then 25% needs improvement, 90-some% of the kids, and again, this is nothing new. It's been going on for a number of years at this unacceptable level. Students with disabilities, Similar, 69%, 72% in 09 failed, 69% failed in 2010, 69% in 2011, 80% in 2012, and 77% in 2013. And then another group were in the needs improvement category. So that's the overview of where we are. The first question I asked myself was, how did this occur? And we've discussed this clearly. I'm not going to go into the fact that when I came here in January, the district was relatively chaotic, to say the least. The finances and the organization wasn't there. And I've been working to create, most importantly, the infrastructure. And I think we've managed that in the last 9 months. In order to focus on instruction, and focus on the classroom, focus on providing support for the classroom teachers, you have to have an infrastructure that creates conditions for learning. It wasn't there. I looked at the ELL and I asked, well, they had multiple directors. Math, they had 3 in less than 3 years. So there was a constant churn. One of the things that people said to me regularly at the schools was, we don't have an accountability system in place. So we're in the process of creating that to a greater degree. Ms. Donovan talked about mileposts and other programs we're putting in place so we can have the data that we can aggregate and then disaggregate for the classroom teacher to inform what happens, to inform supervisors, to inform the principals to do that. I'm very clear in the accountability part is that principals are accountable for what happens in their schools. This is why principals will be coming up next to talk about their programs. And when I say principals are accountable for their program, rather than having directors and supervisors subject area who had no positional authority to make a change. We have the principals doing that, we have assistant principals, and now we have academic deans and instructional resource people that will report to the principal in order to improve what happens into the classroom. So with that, I want to turn this over to Pat, and then she can work with our 2 elementary principals. And the reason why we're doing this rather than by individual schools is very simple. You reorganize the district in 2012, 2013, and we don't have the 3 years data to be able to look at individual schools. West Street, for example, didn't have the younger grades, and Charlton did. So, and then Eastford Road is now a pre-KK, and the 2 other schools are 1 through 5. So we're going to combine the performance of those schools in grades 3, 4, and 5, and then we'll have Mr. Montigny and Mr. Lab make that presentation on their data. Pat, you want to say something?
So we'll just run through it, and then you can come up, or if you want to come up now and just do your strategies. Good evening. Wow. I guess I just want to start by saying that I think if the superintendent was incredibly selfish, which he isn't, for a lot of administrators, this would be such a great place to start with the data being so low. But I can tell you that when both he and I and Julie Fields took a look at the data a week and a half ago, I guess, we were really saddened by it, and we were saddened for the children who are in this district. And so I think as a united team, we all decided that we were really going to pledge ourselves to improving this. So I think that you're going to see some big changes this year. We're looking forward to it. I'm just going to run through some of the data, and if you have questions at the end, but I'm going to just kind of flip through it kind of quickly. This is grade 3, all students. What you'll start seeing in our data is, and they're going to talk about some gains that we've had, but if you take a look at it from 2010 through the present, through 2013, you'll see a few spikes, but for the most part, we're trending, and we're not trending very well. And it's painful for all of us to look at this and knowing that we haven't moved students forward. And you know, we've decided as a united team that we're not going to look for blame, we're not going to point fingers. There's enough of that it's probably been done, but we really want to move forward. So as I said, they're going to come and talk about some of their strategies from improving and some of the spikes that we've had where we have success. but this is grade 3, all students in ELA and math. But if you look at 2013, you can see that in ELA, the needs improvement shot up. I mean, those are things that you look at that your eye goes to immediately. Grade 3 students with disabilities. Again, especially for students with disabilities, I know that I've personally always had a soft spot for special education students and students with disability, and this is where we have to make some ground. I mean, it's the right thing to do. So if you take a look at these, you can, see again where, there's a spike in warning and failing in 2013 in math. Grade 3 English language learners, again, as the superintendent said, if you take a look in math at 2013, 75% of our English language learners are warning or failing in math. And, the superintendent and I were sitting talking today, and both he and I, which is kind of rare for both of us, are at a loss of words sometimes for talking about these scores. Grade 4, all students. Again, if you take a look at these, and as the superintendent says, 3 years causes a trend, we have 5 years of it. So again, it just kind of comes back to how nobody's been watching the store, I guess. So if you look at ELA and if you look at math, and again, you'll see a few spots that our elementary principals are going to talk about. Grade 4 students with disabilities. Again, when you take a look at the red lines on this, it gives you pause. I don't know what else to say. Grade 4 English language learners, the same thing. When you take a look at the red, you notice in 2013 that we leveled off a little bit in needs improvement and warning and failing. But again, these are areas that we've already started working on. Grade 5, all students. Again, if you take a look across 4 years of this, there's not a lot of difference. There's not a lot of meaningful difference. There's some spots, but there's not a lot of meaningful difference. Grade 5, students with disabilities. Again, we follow the unfortunate trending of having the red lines that are way too long. Grade 5, English language learners. Again, the red lines are too long. And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Montigny and Mr. Lab to talk about their school highlights.
Okay, thank you. Well, Dana and I have been working closely together during the restructuring year. And as the superintendent said previously, you're looking at a 3-year trend to give meaningful data. This is the first year I had 4th grade and 5th grade in a school administering the MCAS, and Dana, has a similar reconfiguration also. But as far as the highlights, what I'd like to say that we had 280 students take the test at Charlton Street School in grades 3 to 5. If you look at our ELA, closing the proficiency achievement gap over a period of time, we were at 2 points below what our target was for proficiency levels. And this is for all students. In math, we were above the target by 2.2 points for all students. I was particularly pleased that we had a big spike in grade 3 math, where all students, 280 students, scored at the 60th percentile, which is credible to what the performance was. Students with disabilities, again, we did meet the target. I know we're closing the proficiency gap. It's not where I'd like it to be, but I will explain steps later to address that. In ELL, and when we're looking at students here, we're talking a lot less than 280. We're talking in the vicinity of 50 students. In ELA, we're on target, and in math, we're above the target. In anything that we're at the target or above, we average 2 to 3 points higher to meet our goals in the whole performance with the subgroups. Do you want to talk about your highlights?
Good evening. So one of the things I spoke with my faculty at our October faculty meeting was just being sure that we concentrate on West Street School and looking at the growth of the students that we have in front of us. We're not in competition with Charlton Street School. It's two different schools entirely, and we both have different makeups now because we took on the 3rd grade for testing, and Bryant took on the 4th and 5th grade. So really, it's like comparing apples to oranges. So we concentrated at West Street on our student growth. Some of the highlights that we had from that were, in addition to, we're still below target in all of our areas, but we did improve in all of our areas except for ELL. Our student growth for all elementary students was in between that 40 and 60% that you want to see. For ELA, it was 40.5, and for math, it was 49.0. All students increased from by 200 points as far as points earned from 2012 to 2013. That's for the 4 years, that's the highest point total for that category in 4 years for all students. Students with disabilities, we increased 225 points, going from 75 points earned in 2012 to 300 points earned in 2013, which is the largest amounts of points earned in 4 years. 4th grade math in particular for student growth, again I'm speaking of, in 2013 was 37%. Student growth in 2013 was 55%. The 4th graders' math SGP at West Street School was 1% higher than the math SGP for all 4th graders in the state of Massachusetts. And we have a couple of areas that we certainly need to work on, which we will address in the next slide.
Okay, as far as the next steps, we have the scores. What do we do? We not only restructured the school, we reorganized the delivery of instructional services. We have a fidelity block devoted on a daily basis for 45 minutes, uninterrupted, where my total Title I staff and our instructional resource specialists, which are 2 new positions this year, to go in and model and make sure best practices are happening in classrooms. But this response to intervention, if you looked at a tiered model of 1, 2, and 3 tiers, especially 2 and 3, all students will be identified. They already have this week on how to address their needs for reteaching and to move their test scores forward in their knowledge and in math and in reading. We also have planbook.com, which teachers are using with Fidelity also. It's a new planning system tool that teachers use. They can go on quickly and have their whole week planned based off the Common Core standards to address, and they can share them with the colleagues that are working in their intervention blocks. The instructional resource specialists have really made a big bang at the school already since school started. If we're looking at them increasing the doses of research-based interventions, and especially in tier 2 and 3, they're increasing in target interventions for special education students and second language learners. We redid the whole program where students are now receiving more doses of interventions, and research indicates the more doses you have, the better. So we're hoping that we're getting 10 doses of interventions per child on a daily basis. We're ensuring that teachers are planning for and implementing their reteaching strategies. At grade level meetings, teachers have 1 hour uninterrupted planning once every 4 days with once every 5 days, with our instructional coaches and myself to make sure that they're coming and they're talking about the strengths and weaknesses of students and what they are doing to address those strengths and weaknesses. And it's really all about data. Myself, as administrator, I'm increasing classroom walkthroughs to provide more high-quality feedback on instructional practice to teachers of what I see or don't see. And that's about it. As far as, our focus this year at school is on reading comprehension. If you look at our MCAS scores, we have more of a strength in math than we do in reading. And I just want to say that professional day this Friday is devoted to 3 hours of creating templates and creating plans to address the weaknesses of students. All students have been identified at my school in grades 3, 4, and 5 based on MCAS on what their performance levels are. And we're creating item analysis graphs from the Common Core standards from the state, and we're identifying at least 5 areas below with Pat was talking to us about making a true line across the graph at each grade to see where students are falling. And it stands out. If we pick 5-item analysis to address, and as Pat was saying previously to us, that if each student increases their score, or if they answer 5 more questions correctly, we'll see a big spike in scores at the end of the school year. So these are all in place, and I look forward to this professional development.
Yeah, again, one of the purposes of MCAS is to use that information to inform instruction, and one of the things we've really worked on at both the elementary schools is that data cycle. In particular, the thing that Bryant was talking about with our professional development for Friday is taking, actual specifics and creating that true line in order to really target in of where, taking that information and using it to our advantage in order to fix the areas that we have need in. Some of the other areas that we've done at both schools and at West Street is Universal Design for Learning Classroom. This is taking ELL and special education services where typically they have been kind of horizontally aligned, and I've actually vertically aligned them to grade level along with some of the team members from school and put them in close proximity to the classroom so that we have opportunities for special education, ELL, and students who fall into both designations to work in small groups close to the classroom, work with other students, speaking in English to each other and working through the problems, in learning in different ways, not typical of in a whole class instruction. So that's one area that we really focused on. Scheduling consistent support within the classrooms in order to allow for co-planning time embedded in team time. That was one of the situations with Plan Book, which is why we wanted to get involved with that, was having been a special education teacher, having that information from the classroom teacher. You have an instructional leader and a learning leader, and they need to be able to have an opportunity to share lesson plans and communicate with each other in order to target those interventions and lead the learning in the classroom. And oftentimes it was in the past, maybe they felt like they were stepping on each other's toes, but this gives an opportunity to have true planning ahead of time, especially during a day in elementary. We don't have a lot of time for co-planning. So embedding that into the data team time at the end of the day, people know how to do the data cycle now, so we have that time in order to do that. We also have a math curriculum now too. A lot of this was done last year without a math curriculum. We have My Math, which a lot of our folks got trained on the other day, which has a lot of capabilities on online practical applications that they can use in the classroom. So we're looking forward to actually being able to have a curriculum that we can use in order to support our learning. We're doing professional development within the staff meetings as well. Brian and I both made an effort to coordinate our information that we send out to teachers and to home, both bi-weekly and monthly to families and to staff, to involve that data and show areas where we need improvement and also to give ideas to folks at home about how they can support in some of those areas. I personally have been looking at posting my hours so that people can see how my day works out, so that I'm forcing myself into those classrooms so that I can be there, as an observer, and taking peers from the classroom, our IRSs and other staff members in, so that they can learn from other staff members and give true feedback day in and day out, so that they can inform their instruction.
The one thing I want to say also is that by this Friday, every faculty member in my school, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, including teachers, paraprofessionals, tutors, will all have the scores of students. And why? I want first grade teachers, they may know the 5th grade kids or vice versa. The other thing I want to say with our RTI model is we've been getting some positive feedback from our Title I staff that they're servicing grades 1 through 5 on a daily basis. So they're bringing different techniques from each class. They're seeing things happening in classes that are really, strong instruction they can bring back to another teacher to assist them. So I'm excited about this, the way that what we're trying to do to bring the scores up, and we'll do our best to get there. And the one thing I have to say, with the parent involvement, kudos to parents at Charlton Street School. 2 weeks ago, we had over 200 parents come to parent luncheons throughout the lunch periods. And my homeschool liaison, Mrs. Perez, provided educational materials to parents to do with their children. So keep up the good work, parents. Thank you.
It's round 2 of musical chairs. Come on up. Before I take a look at 6 through 10, which I'm going to do similar to the way we did 3 through 5, just for the sake of time, I'd like to thank Julie Fields, our data guru, for want of a better word, or diva, whichever she likes, we'll call her. She was up at 11:30 last night finishing the PowerPoint that we decided to change during our administrative meeting at 9 o'clock this morning. So I think sometimes when we get going, we forget to thank people who are invaluable. So I just wanted to make sure that Julie knows we really appreciate it. If you take a look at grade 6, all students, the trending continues, too much red. If you take a look at ELA, we do see a little bit of growth this year, but the growth needs improvement, which is not where we want to make growth. Grade 6 with disabilities, it continues. And again, as I said, earlier, most of us weren't here. It would be really easy to say, we weren't here, this wasn't on our watch, but I think all of us have sort of taken an oath that we're going to own this and we're going to move forward from it. And you take a look at it, and for us, I guess it's not disheartening because we know the challenge that we have, and we're going to meet that challenge. Grade 6 English language learners, again, to repeat myself, there's too much red, but we're going to lower that number. Grade 7 all students, again in math, this year 65% warning or failing. We find this to be unacceptable. All of us, it's absolutely unacceptable. When we're talking about looking at this data, we don't want to skew it. I mean, some of it's pretty hard to skew, but on the same token, we're owning it and we're moving forward. Grade 7 students with disabilities, again, the numbers break my heart. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm not a big crier. Sometimes I'm a pit bull, but this jerks at my heartstrings. Grade 7 ELL learner, English language learners, again, too much red. I'm not quite sure why these didn't print. Julie could tell us, but the trend is the same. I mean, unfortunately, the missing data here would not be very different than what we're seeing. Grade 8, all students. If you take a look at this, you may see some growth, a lot less red on this page, which is always nice to see, but again, we need to make some gains from this. Grade 8 students with disabilities, we continue with too much red. Grade 8 English language learners, as the superintendent said, and as I mentioned earlier, we haven't done a good job with them. We haven't been fair to them as an educational system. Grade 10 all students. Grade 10 generally starts getting the picture. They want to graduate. We were talking about the requirements and what MCAS really means. To a certain extent, it's an exit exam. And by 10th grade, students start to understand that they need it, and generally retest students do incredibly better than they did sometimes on the original because it becomes meaningful. Where sometimes in middle schools across the country aren't testing well. I think sometimes they don't get the big picture, but by 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, students are understanding it. Grade 10 students with disabilities. Again, if you take a look at 2012 and 2013 in math, it's a trend that we have to stop. And if you take a look at ELA for students with disability started leveling out some, which I think Ms. Culligan is going to talk about in a couple of minutes. Grade 10 English language learners, again, we're not doing great in ELA, but the math scores are, for want of a better word, horrific. So I'm going to turn this over to Amy, and she's going to talk about their levels and their achievements and what they're planning to do. We'll just, I think sorry.
No, I think I'm loud enough. This is all ugly, but I do want to highlight a few things where we did show some growth in grades 6 through 12. In math, for grade 6, all students, students with disabilities, and ELL students did show improvement in all performance levels in advanced proficient, warning, and needs improvement. Grade 8, students with disabilities decreased warning from 92% to 56%, which is significant. ELA achievements, grade 8, ELL proficiency increased 12% and warning decreased 16%. Grade 10, ELL proficiency increased 36% and warning needs improvement decreased 82%. The greatest gains in our highlight areas, surprisingly, were in our subgroups. Science achievements, I think science overall was our greatest gain. Grade 10 students showed overall improvement in all categories, all students with disabilities and ELL, including 8% of SPED got advanced in science, and there was 0% last year. 9% of all students got advanced in science, which increased from 1% last year. What we already have in place are some things that we've talked to you about before. The full teams at the middle school level with a special ed teacher and support staff attached to each. The restructuring of the whole middle school to allow us to have those full teams and those extra staff members in place. Recently we revised ELL schedules. We worked with Ms. Culligan and the guidance staff at the middle school. We had students that were in the ELL classroom that were also special ed students that weren't getting the proper accommodations for both of those things, ELL and SPED. So we've revised those schedules to make sure that those students get the accommodations in both areas. And we added the E-block, which I think we've mentioned to you before. It's the intervention block at the end of the day in the middle school. Every single day, the last 36 minutes of the day is dedicated to intervention in ELA and math. And it's a week of ELA intervention, then a week of math intervention, then a week of ELA and a week of math. And the groups that are involved in the intervention are smaller than the regular because we're involving the special area teachers and all the special ed teachers and all the tutors and the paras. They're all involved in this. So we have many hands on deck for this. We group the students based on their specific needs. So it's not necessarily the ELL students in a group, the SPED students in a group. Sometimes there's special ed and regular ed students in a group, and it's based on their needs specific to their MCAS testing. So the standards that they're weak in rather than their just general areas. We're revising those right now based on this current MCAS data, and it can be a fluid process so that those students are always being addressed for their specific need. And at the high school, as you know, we re-implemented Freshman Academy. We got an additional science teacher at the high school level, and we extended the program of studies to offer additional opportunities for the students. Our next steps for the middle high school, we've created a school-wide focus. We looked at the MCAS data and the trends over years, and it's much of it is based on vocabulary deficiencies in math, in science, and ELA MCAS. Many of the questions that the students get wrong are because of vocabulary that's built into the question that they don't understand, words that they don't know the meaning of. So we're going right to the root of these problems and focusing on vocabulary development in 6 through 12, all classes, every subject, every day. We're using MCAS style assessments for test taking practice all year in all the core subjects, all grades. After school MCAS remediation in ELA, math, and science for high school students in the classes of 2014 through 2017 and current 8th graders, class of 2018, who scored warning or needs improvement on ELA or math and warning or failure on most recent science. And that's via the 632 grant, and that will start in November. We do Write for Success and Make It a 4 contest at the middle school, which is the open response part of the MCAS, and Write for Success is for ELA and Make It a 4 is for math. And we try to get the students pumped up when we do this just before MCAS to try to get them kind of crunched into that mode and to give them motivation. And we give out prizes to the students and the classes who get the highest scores on these. And then, as Mr. Montigny and Mr. Lab said, on Friday on our PD day, the whole staff is going to be analyzing the MCAS data, all the subgroup data, all the ELL data, and creating action plans to how every person in the building can come together and address our weaknesses and our issues in MCAS. rather than just the ELA teachers and the math teachers and the science teachers. We're all responsible, and we all need to work on this together.
Next, we're going to hear from Ms. Culligan, the Director of Pupil Personnel Services.
Good evening. So I think it's important to just talk about a few areas that I've taken some heart in. Each of the schools have talked about their individual highlights. The special education subgroup and the ELL subgroup are obviously an area of main focus. It's also an area that we've had to take a really hard look at with respect to the structures that we've created in the schools. And I've come to you several times to talk, over time about our service delivery and how we're trying to restructure that. So before I do that, I wanted to point out that Massachusetts replaced sort of their idea of 100% of the students reaching proficiency by the 2013 and 2014 school year to a goal of reducing what they call the proficiency gaps. This is the achievement gap that you hear about all the time, the difference between regular education students and the subgroups, the special education and the ELL, the achievement gap. So I wanted to just point out that the proficiency gap, it really measures the progress of school districts for students in the subgroups. And it's a more important and valuable measure for us because what it does is it looks at the performance, the proficiency performance, and it really measures steady improvement. It's less about the percentiles that the students are making on the MCAS. And it reflects all student groups making steady improvement. So an example would be a school could have lower percentiles in a particular outcome on a test, but could be making steady improvement because their performance proficiency index is improving. Or you could even have concomitantly, and alternatively, you could have higher percentiles and lower PPI scores, meaning that there's more work to do to support some of those special subgroups. So here's a slide that shows, this is one of several slides, and the principals talked about their individual schools, so there are a few of these small bright lights among some of the schools. This is an example of a 5th grade students with disabilities, the first improvement seen in over 3 years. And to talk about the whole district, I think we can go forward to the next slide, although, I think it's important to point out that our focus really is on narrowing the proficiency gap. So for the whole district, and you don't have a slide for this, ELA proficiency gap has narrowed, science proficiency gap has narrowed. For the middle school and high school, the science proficiency gap has narrowed above target. And you can kind of see in these next slides, this is all of the 2013 mathematics proficiency gap narrowing for the entire district, on target for students with disabilities. If we could go to the, West Street School, ELA proficiency gap has narrowed, math proficiency gap has narrowed, the ELA language arts growth on target for students with disabilities, math growth improving for students with disabilities. Charlton Street School is next, I believe, in the next slide. No, we got the middle high school. Here's your science proficiency gap. There has been no change in the ELA and in the math improvements. Science has improved above target for students with disabilities.
Do you want Charleston Street?
Yeah, did it come up next? Was it the first one? Pardon me. Charlton Street actually improved its ELA proficiency gap, the achievement gap above target, math on target, and earned extra points for the district in both ELA and math. So I do believe that despite the dismal, very high red lines, a number of them are going down. They're going down very slowly. They're not going down fast enough. But we are making some improvements. We're hitting the state targets and hitting above targets for reducing the achievement gap for students with disabilities. We're also, I think, talking a lot more about including special education teachers in all aspects of the data analysis, in the focus on results groups, grade level meetings. Special education teachers are now participating in those in all the schools. The plan book in particular, there's been a lot of talk about co-teaching, strengthening our co-teaching model, having special education teachers be as strong in the classroom with their general education teachers and providing as much support and curriculum and instruction and remediation as the general education teacher at all levels. So I think that's really going to help. We have a much stronger team effort that I'm feeling, seeing, and hearing as I go out to the department meetings this year. The special education teachers are feeling very strongly that they're getting a lot of support and that they feel that they can begin to work towards improving all of the special education scores.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The superintendent is going to conclude the presentation now.
So where are we in comparison? So you'll see that we selected 3 other school districts that are similarly situated: Webster, Clinton, and Holyoke. You'll see that we have 2,270 students. Webster has 1,864. Clinton about the same size, and Holyoke substantially larger. But as we talked about those subgroups, the students with disabilities, as we talked about English language learners, and we talked about the challenges of low-income students, I think it's really important to take a look at this. Our numbers of students out of the 2,270 is 395 with disabilities, Webster 331, and so on. You can see all of this. I think the nearest district to us is Webster, and we have 258 English language learner students who are new, and Webster has 51. We had Oxford. Oxford had 6. And I made a presentation earlier in the year with the budget time talking about the challenges of working in an urban district with a high percentage of low-income students and second language, how more difficult it is, how more challenging it is, and so on. And then when you look at the low-income students, you'll see that Southbridge has the highest, a very high percentage, 1,700 out of 2,270 categorized as low-income students. Class sizes are good, 19.2 is an average, and so on, so we're pretty comparable over there. When you look at performance, and this is one of the things we wanted to look at next, was how do we perform overall against all of it? We painted a pretty dismal picture in here this evening. I think it's important that people see this data, and then I hope that a sense of urgency is increased. I think that's one of the things we need, is that kids can't repeat year after year being in a situation where progress isn't being made. So when you look at overall how we compare, you'll see the state is in the far right in blue, and in ELA, 69%. And if you look at Southbridge, we're 38, Holyoke is 34, Webster, our nearest, is 52. At math, we're comparable with them. So what we're saying is that, as you know, last year we substantially reorganized this entire district. One of the things that was very obvious was that we didn't have enough staffing in the middle school and high school to provide the math, the ELA, and so on. Plus, it wasn't organized to provide the kind of performance that was necessary. So we invested a considerable sum in faculty to create a middle school model, created teams, we provided time for the teachers to have a team planning time and also personal planning time. There are now team leaders and department chairs, and this is all part of the accountability chain that we expect those people we've identified with responsibility to do that and work with their particular staffs. The principal is responsible for the overall performance of that school, and they're all adequately staffed. The one thing we're not is understaffed in that respect. What we have to do is work a lot smarter. There's a lot of hard-working teachers and staff members and administrators in this system, but we got to work smarter. We have to have the data in front of us. We have to see what students need, and then work together to address those particular areas. Without the data, without being informed, there is no sense of urgency. I look at the test scores for some of the ELL students. I know I took a lot of heat last spring and summer because we eliminated the ELL tutors. Well, if you look at what they were doing, obviously it wasn't getting the kind of results we wanted. And they were providing translation services. Now, with the new direction of ELL, we have ESL people, they're trained teachers working with the students, providing the support they need. But just translating the information into their native language doesn't do it. So we have to change. The data is pretty clear. This isn't something that occurred overnight in the last year. It's a 5-year average. You saw the fact that it's been substantially below expectations. I use the term underperforming your expected demographics. I look at Holyoke. Holyoke's demographics are considerably more challenging than what we have over here, yet they're performing there. And we're right almost even with them, and our population isn't as challenging as that if you look at the number of second language learners they have, look at the neighborhoods they come from. So, what you see here is that I think everybody sitting behind me is dedicated to the fact that we're going to make a difference. We're going to make a change. This is sobering information. Friday we have a professional development day. And the professional development day, which will start at 8:45 in the morning, will have the entire faculty at the high school, and then Pat and I will go through a presentation such as so every faculty member knows where they are. I think sometimes we don't pay attention to the data. I know the newspapers do, I know the real estate agents do, and like I said before, the first thing people do when they look for a house is say, what's the MCAS scores? Where do you rank? And so on. So MCAS does make a difference. I think in certain cases, people just blew it off. Kids and so on. I mean, statistically, when you look at some of those ELL things, when you see the gaps, there's no way 90% of the kids can just fail, even if you just mark them every. So that's what we want to look at. So as you heard before, all of our testing programs will be MCAS style. All of the reports will be MCAS style. MCAS makes a big difference. I'll say it over and over again. Massachusetts scores #1 in the country. MCAS tests the frameworks. And with the frameworks is a coordinated statewide curriculum, and it tests what should be taught. Simple as that. And so we're going to hold everyone accountable for what happens in the classroom, from the principals, supervisors, including the superintendent. Now, we're going to improve these scores. You're at level 4 historically because of long-term low performance of the students in the district. Didn't happen again. 9 years, 10 years you've been there. This has to turn around. We're already making a substantial turn, and then over time we're going to move the herd northeast. We're going to go this way. We're not going to keep going like this and down. And I have confidence in the people that we have sitting behind me, and I know they have a sense of urgency, because when we looked at the data the other day, well, last week or so, we were all stunned. And then when we aggregated it and looked at the trends over time, it wasn't a one-year blip. It's something that, and now we know we have to change what happens in the schools, what happens in the classroom. What we've been doing before, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, clearly hasn't worked. And we're spending $24–25 million a year. And this is what we're getting. We have to change that. And I think there's no simple solution to that. It's a lot of effort, it's a lot of data, it's a lot of training, and it's a lot of time. And I think that most of the staff that we have are willing to dedicate that effort, time, and energy to doing this. I know I am. And I know that I've spoken with the school committee about staying longer than my contract, and I thought about that for a long time. And I really believe there are some people with their arms crossed like this, and, well, he'll be gone, we'll have another transition, we'll have a couple more people doing something. Well, if everything works out well with the committee and everything, I intend to stay another year. So I want to see this through. And then one of the things I talked with members sitting in front of me is that we're going to create a smooth transition. So the good things that we're doing will continue for a number of years, because it's not going to be fixed overnight. You have to have consistent leadership over time to improve. That's the key. Every bit of research shows that's the quality of leadership and consistent leadership, not this little yo-yo. Every couple of years you change, because people are going to sit there, well, why should I get invested in this? It's going to change. So that's one of the things I haven't told my wife yet, but we're working on it, okay? And I'll be meeting with all of you. But I think that's, I'm not depressed by this. Not at all. I look at this as a long-term challenge. We have lots of good people here. We're negotiating the contracts so we can pay the teachers and recruit and retain. So I hope that gets done shortly. We worked really hard last year, I want to mention Karen Sheridan over there, so we could make sense of the budget. And she'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes, where we have our first monthly report that adds up at the bottom. So we know exactly how much money we have, and every one of the people behind me are responsible for their budget, so it becomes public. Everybody gets everybody else's, so we can see this openness that we have to do. We can't keep working in silos. We can't keep operating in a situation where, well, those kids are this, and they don't have a good support at home, so therefore, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. On Friday, I'm going to show examples where districts with similar populations like us outperform us substantially. Outperform us substantially. And I think that's what we have to do, is we have to change the bit of negativity that we have around here. You know, that's what I said about the critic before, right? It's easy to criticize. It's easy to find fault. But if we're going to improve this community, improve the school district, and by improving the school district, that whole town will be more successful. Then the zip code will be positive rather than being negative. So that's what I wanted to say over here, because I don't look at this as this is a starting point. We have no place else to go but up now. We have no place else to go but up, because we can't certainly go down. And I hate to say this about, I live in Western Mass. I've always been out there since I've been in Massachusetts. And she came out of Springfield. And whatever district I was in, I always said, well, we're going to outperform Springfield and Holyoke. Can't say that anymore, because they've made tremendous strides with their challenged population. And so we have to look at what they're doing to a certain extent. We have to look around us and see what other communities. I didn't put Worcester up there, but Worcester performs higher than we do. And we all know what Worcester is. I should have put them out there, but there were 25,000 students to be kind of an unfair comparison in that respect. But I'll do it on Friday, because I want people to recognize the fact that it is being done. And I'll repeat that again. It is being done with the population that we have, with the resources that we have. It just takes clarity, focus, and determination. I think we have the clarity, we have the focus. Now we need the determination and the political will of the community to push forward. We can't keep operating with the drama that's been here and the situations that's been here. I'm excited about hanging around a little bit longer. And I think we have Pat, all the principals and directors behind us. I think we've put together a good team that's going to work together to push everybody forward. So I'll open it up to you for questions and comments.
Anyone with questions? Dr. O'Leary?
Thanks, everyone. A couple of things. I'll try not to go on too much. Just sort of disturbing as well, heartbreaking and ugly, and I don't know if abysmal came in there, but yeah, I agree. A long way to go. I won't belabor that. Everyone sees it. Does anyone have a gestalt as to the percentile of the total number of students or ELL, just for statistics? A guess. Oh, I'm sorry? So certainly a significant number. I know there's a lot of places to work on, but with so many kids in the underperforming, it really does tend to skew a lot of the benefit that you see in other realms. So certainly a target. I know that we had started to discuss this last year, or last season, in curriculum, and we started talking about the changes. I hope that whatever changes come out of this, specifically for ELL, are going to be maybe described as radical or something, because certainly, as is evident, what has been going on and the trend shows it's not, it hasn't worked for us. I appreciate the little lights, the cup half full kind of comments about we have made improvements incrementally, so I guess we have to look at that as well. The last part is this: I've got to see, especially tonight, I don't know why it's coming so clear tonight, but over the time I've had here, you know, there have been a whole number of challenges that came when I came maybe 5 years or so, and one of them was the infrastructure. Everyone said it was the schools, and it wasn't 5 years ago. That started a long time ago, but when I came on, they were embroiled in that and getting that done, and that's come to pass. And shortly after that, and continuing on, we've had some bumps in the road in terms of administration, not so much with the school, but on the school committee side as well. We went through some trials and tribulations last year that sort of clouded an otherwise monumental event, I think, of getting the new schools up and running. This year, to me, coming from a parent with a number of kids in the system, they uniformly say it's a much better experience this year than it was last year, so that's really important. So another component of what are our issues, why aren't we succeeding? And there was administration issues last year, which was ugly in and of its own. That has been addressed, and then the last part as well, is it in the classroom, is it with the teachers, where else does it lie? Well, the other things are already done, and I'm not saying anything to teachers, but it seems to me the last thing left is in the classroom to, as I hope it sounds like the direction is going, that's the only thing left. And I firmly believe, I agree with you, Buzz, that the biggest thing that we can do for our kids in this district and the town is to improve these scores. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Quinney, did you have any questions?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Prior to MCAS tests of this year, are there testing that'll go along the way to indicate that the things that we're trying this year are trending us forward?
Well, we thought that that the ANETs test would correlate to the MCAS test, but we're finding it doesn't correlate as well as we would like. And so once milepost comes in, we'll be able to now develop assessments, formative assessments in the schools. We'll be able to identify and then work from there and then see the growth over there. And what I'm saying is that that the teachers don't have the data in a readily accessible way that they can use right now, okay? By putting together this program, it'll allow them to have that. You heard Mr. Lab talk about the plan book. We got a lot of things in place now that's going to make the lives of the teachers easier, certainly the administrators, and just something as simple as having the plan book in place. It's a slow rollout. We expect it to be in place by January. And special ed teachers, the paras, and the tutors who may not have an opportunity to meet with the teacher can go online and see exactly where the plan is and can come in and hit the ground running. Before, they didn't have that opportunities. So when I said we're fixing the infrastructure to be able to do that. As far as, but I'll go back to Dr. O'Leary, is that we rewrote the AIP because the AIP was done in the past, and it didn't focus on classroom instruction and student achievement. So now we're doing that. We've redirected our classroom, our learning walks, and we're going to conduct one with administrators tomorrow to ensure that we have consistency. All our principals will be going with Pat and so on at the high school tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., and then having a debriefing from that. We just kind of threw it out before and just hoped, you know, it's like throwing stuff on the wall, what sticks, sticks. So we have a plan. We have a plan. So this is part of the whole thing. We want to ensure that our administrators are consistent in knowing what good instruction looks like. Can identify it, can put it down, and then give good feedback so improvement occurs. And that hasn't been happening uniformly around the district. It's been a lot of different things. We brought in DSAC, we brought in different people, and sometimes we do a good job, sometimes we didn't. So we're trying to create that. But I think it's important that you mentioned that, yeah, the environment's a whole lot better now. Schools are orderly, okay? People are where they're supposed to be. That had to happen first. And the excuse was that, until you get that. So I think it's that accountability all the way up, built in and so on. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll look at tests that correlate well with MCAS, that are predictive in quality. Right now we don't have that. And I think the best thing to do is develop our own rather than buying things. So if we start looking at and becoming more data literate, then we can now create classroom tests. Now teachers can create unit tests, and then the common assessment, the term we throw around, becomes more prevalent. That's our goal. It's going to take a couple of years to get there.
Can I continue? Yeah. Not to belabor the point, I think, as a parent, as a school committee member, and as a member of the community, I think that these scores are just outrageous. So I think that's where we are. And moving forward, what would be reasonable gains to anticipate over the next 1, 2, and 3 years?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I look at the ELA scores particularly, that'll change dramatically. Okay, we just restructured that and so on, and we're not going to allow, there's some 10th grade tests and some 8th grade ELA scores. It doesn't even make any sense to me, because one year we had the number of tests, next year we don't have anybody. You look at the charts. Where did they go? So I think part of it was administrative record keeping and administrative focus on the testing. We couldn't figure out where the kids were. How can you not have, okay, so that's one of the things. The second aspect of it is that I think all of the principals behind me have said very clearly that by focusing on the class, focusing on the program and so on, we expect a substantial gain. I mean, Pat and I and a number of administrators that were here. Now we own this. We own this now. I'm not going to sit and make excuses about what wasn't here and everything else. We own it now. We're going to make the effort, and we're going to show how many points, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, a lot is my goal. All right? And we're not going to have, you heard Colleen talk about the special ed. They're starting to make improvements already. I looked at the number of special ed kids, and so I checked and asked how many SPED alt tests were given. The alternative program for kids are, well, not enough. I think that was 24 last year. And they're hard, and they're time consuming, so now we'll make sure people are trained. The students that have that, when they get, and they pass it, they get 100 points. Our whole CPI moves up. But that was it. They were ignored. 24 kids in the whole school system that took all tests. Okay, not enough. Again, and there I'll lay the blame on the administrative aspect of it, because the focus wasn't there. And then even the organization of the test last spring at the high school was chaotic at first. And then when I look back over there, there's some interesting gaps over here, interesting scores, and so on. So I think by having it well organized, knowing full well when it's going to be, we've coordinated the calendars. We know when the ANET test, it's not going to be a haphazard thing like it was. The calendars are there, they know when the walkthroughs are there. We've established this, so it becomes, people can be more comfortable with the fact that these things are going to happen, and they will happen. It won't just disappear. It'll be focused for 2 weeks and then go away. We're going to focus on improving test scores. And we're not going to do it by drilling and killing the kids. We're going to do it by effective instruction. So, at the middle high school is the one I've been focusing on, Pat's been focusing on. You know, we have department chairs, we have team leaders and so on. And there was a little pushback because we asked for data as to what happened. Well, I didn't think asking for meetings, times, who was there, and what was discussed is unreasonable. That's the kind of accountability we're talking about. I'm talking about teachers, I'm talking about our leadership. And so I got back and said, well, that's ridiculous, you're asking for more. I said, I don't think so. So.
The last thing I just wanted to say was, I think I'm encouraged by hearing that systems are being put in place that are going to be consistent over time, no matter who's in leadership at any one point, that procedures will be in place so that this can continue on, whether the people sitting in front of us are not the same people, that those things will be put in place for the students so that they can continue to make gains despite whoever is sitting in your chairs.
Karen's perfect to talk about because there are no protocols for finance. We're establishing that. So principals behind me when I came here kept asking me, we don't know how much money we have. So how could they plan? So now they do. So that's the systems. They're essential. Without systems, you can't move forward. And they have to be reliable and predictable over time. So.
Sorry about that. I thought that was turned off. Mrs. McLaughlin?
Thank you very much. That was a very sobering presentation. I appreciate that. I appreciate seeing the 5 years worth of data. My stomach's in knots. I wrote so many notes scattered all over the place, so forgive me if this is a little disjointed. First, a question. We have a lot of transients in this district. We know that. We have a lot of kids that come in, say in 7th grade, and they're at a 4th grade, come in with 4th grade skills. And so even if there are gains in the classroom to bring those 4th grade skills up to 5th grade or 6th grade skills, they may not make 7th grade skills. Do we know what the rate of transience is in this district?
I don't think it's that high. You see,
You don't?
mobility rates are interesting because I spent a lot of time looking at mobility rates, and you have only 4 schools. When you're in a larger district, when they move from school to school to school, for rent and things of that particular nature, we established a very simple policy. If you move during the school year from West Street to Charlotte Street, you stay where you are. So we want to create that consistency. When transients and mobility affect performances when they go to 4 or 5 schools in the course of a year or 2. Okay. So that's one of the things. We have 1 middle high school, okay? But if they come and go, like we've had students enroll, but I've been looking at the numbers coming in and going, and we're going to be producing those for you on a regular basis, it's not that high. It's not, that's an excuse. We have a high mobility rate, we have high this and so on. That's just an excuse as far as I'm concerned. And then we have a lot of specialists that can address those particular needs. We've organized ourselves with the ELL now, we've organized ourselves with special education, we've organized those, so we can address that. You don't hear teachers saying, I got 5 new kids today, and then next week they're gone. That's not true. So there are students that come and go, but that's anywhere.
Thank you. So it would appear we're at ground zero, right? Starting today, we're at ground zero. What do you need from us as a school committee to help or to improve these scores? It's apparent everybody needs to up their game here, including this board. And how can we do that? What can we do?
I said consistency. Okay, I think that's one of the things I'm looking for, okay? And every successful school district has a consistent school committee, consistent administration, and consistent practices. So this is what we all have to work on, is to create that consistency, and then the same message. You can't have different messages, different expectations for different. The expectations for ELL kids, especially because they will learn at a high level. You can't just say that, well, they just came from overseas or some other country and so on, and so on. I came from overseas, from another country, and learned the language. So that's one of the things is that I said before, it takes more work, it takes more energy and to make a difference in a school system like this. And I think many of our teachers will step up to that. Those that don't can go to the suburbs. Because you got to say to yourself, I can make a difference. I can make a difference. I think that's what we're looking. And I think you all have to say that to yourself too, that you can make a difference for this community, and accept the fact that and you're going to be putting up with. I got in trouble last time for speaking the truth, but I don't mind. Okay, and I think that this community, and I think you said it before, has to give people a second chance, right? Instead of the benefit of doubt, I think is the word you used. Instead of immediately jumping to a negative conclusion and thinking of the worst, you know. There's a lot of good kids here, a lot of good teachers here, a lot of good administrators here, a lot of good parents. I was just besides myself this morning when the preschool program that runs over here, the negative attitude of the director of it. I was just shocked. You know, how can you provide quality if you don't think the kids deserve it? So I think when I was down south, one of the principals talked about valuing kids, and I think that's something that we need to think about. So I don't have a direct answer, but the answer is supporting the staff, supporting the administration, and clearly working well with the superintendent to accomplish this. It's going to be tough, folks. You know.
We're a small district, and we should be able to do this.
If we can't change 4 schools around, we all need to find something else to do. I said that today, this morning. 4 schools.
And lastly, some of the PowerPoint slides were just difficult to read. Could we get this e-file sent to us so we can look at that more clearly and analyze some of that data?
And Julie and Pat and Sarah and a few others worked like crazy because we had too many slides first, and we're trying to figure out what's the best way to do this without painting a picture saying we had 3% gain over here or 2% gain over here, and so we're doing okay. We're not. So we have to accept that. And now this is baseline data, and we're going to move forward.
Thank you. Mrs. Donovan?
I'm just going to kind of go in order of the way the presentation was given, and then most of my information comes towards the end. One of the questions that came up when Mr. Montigny was talking about his highlights, and I commend you on your meeting your targets and being above targets and relative to those highlights. My question was, are those state targets? What targets are we looking at to say that we're on target?
The composite index score.
Okay.
If we look at your subgroup performances, their targets is not as high because over a period of time. The targets, it's a moving target every year. By the year 2017, and now I think they extended it from 2014 at 100% of students. So that's increased every year. The CPI targets, for instance, on my targets on all students would be around the 71 points, and we hit that in math, and we were 2 points below that in ELA. So that target is set by the state. Now, I have a CPI target for 2013, then I have a target they set that I need to meet. So what happened in all those areas, including all students and subgroups, they set the target, and our performance, if it exceeded it, was above or at. So if we look at 100 points, that's advanced. And if you look at 70 points, like proficient, so it's meeting the target at 70 or above. Okay. And our subgroups are set a little bit lower because of the performance over time to try to get them eventually to come up. And so our subgroups are coming up gradually.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just, we didn't want to go through all the 4 different ways to calculate this. And so the targets the goal originally was 2014, 100% of the kids in America would be proficient, right? And the country would be crime-free. So that target every year increased. So 2010, I was just looking at it, was 56%. And then it goes up numerically. And then we got closer to 2014, the gaps widened, so it became harder and harder to attain your target, to attain your proficiency goal. So the state sets the targets for all of the groups in the school, and Charlton met or exceeded those, and so on. And then West Street was very close to those particular proficiency points.
Okay, all right. I understand, thank you. One thing I was thinking about, and I know, Buzz, you mentioned it at our last school committee meeting, when you talk a lot about MCAS, there's a lot of talk about teaching to the test. And I know a lot of school districts that have good test scores, that's exactly what they do, is they teach to the test. And my question is, now that these test results have came out, these tests were taken in the spring and now it's the fall, so now we have the results. Do you actually, at this point in time, have the actual tests that the students took so that you can see exactly what question or what each question was in each section, to know what standard was being tested and how that each student did on that test, and not only that particular standard and student, but can you also find out or determine whose classroom that student was in that got that standard correct, got that question right, and therefore you can conclude that that teacher is doing something right and can serve as a model to co-teach or share that information to teaching that particular standard moving forward. Is that too complex of a question?
Yes, and yes. What we worked on last week in our DLT meeting was exactly that. You can pull up a line item analysis like for fourth grade ELA. So what we did, we pulled it up and it has a little line of how we did going across. And this was something we were going to look at, but you can only show so many slides, but it's certainly something that we could show you at a later date. But yes, so what we did when Bryant and Dana were talking about drawing the through line, we actually are taking those grids and we're drawing a line across as we will go no further than this. So all of the questions this year that are under our can't go below line, on Friday, what we're going to do is, as a school, they're going to look at them, take a look at what the standard is, take a look at the questions. The questions are released. Not all of them are released, but the majority of questions are released, and we can take a look at those. And for a lot of them, what we looked at, because we actually deconstructed several of the questions ourselves as adults, and what we started seeing again was probably the lack of good test-taking skills. And as a superintendent says, everybody teaches to the test. If you think about what you want at the end of a year, you're teaching towards something. And I think that's the way we're going to look at this. And so we broke down, I believe we looked at a third grade question, I could be wrong, but we realized that the question was a three-part question that had some pretty specific vocabulary in it. And if the student did not follow the 3 steps and they did not know this science-specific vocabulary, there was no way they could be successful on those questions. So those are some of the things that we're really going to get down and look at that I would be willing to bet you my next paycheck, and it's pretty dear to me, that this has not been done before. So I think we're looking at it very, very, very differently, and I think that we're going to be able to come back and teach our students about those gaps. I think the fortunate thing, as we take a look at our line item analysis with the states, we're trending with the state. If the state went up on a standard about nonfiction, we went up with it. So we can really see where we need to close those gaps, and it makes a lot of sense as educators to look at it that way.
So based on your last statement, are you saying that we're moving in the right direction, it's just that the gap needs to become smaller?
Yes.
When we say we're following the trend of the state?
I guess, if you take a look at it, one of the positives that we saw as we looked at it was that the state was the state was here and we were here. That was not the case. Right. We followed where the state was going. It's just that, we were a number of points behind in every category except for a couple of categories in the elementary schools. There were a couple in elementary where on some questions we were very, very close. And those are the ones that we talked about looking at it as well to see what is this question and why did we do really well here. And I think also taking a look at individual teachers of, who's doing good on this and why. And I think one of our goals this year is we want to catch people doing things right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way that we want to move forward, is we want to see good instruction. And these are some ways that we're going to help teachers work towards that.
Right. One thing I was thinking about, is it possible for a teacher to really know what good instruction looks like? And if they haven't seen it here, is there somewhere we could take them to see it?
Oh. You hope that teachers know what good instruction is. As in our curriculum meeting with Dr. Domingo the other day, we were talking about that. As the superintendent says quite often, common sense isn't very common. So we have some teachers that are performing at a very, very high level, and we have some who are not performing at a high level. And so our goal this year is to create opportunities for them to improve. We have a mentor program for teachers who are new to teaching. Teachers who are new to the district can participate in it, and teachers that don't have professional status are given a mentor. And we really beef that up. Dr. Jordan is running mentoring meetings with them where they're meeting this year, and I can't speak to last year, I don't know, but I know that we're doing it right this year. And again, I'm not pointing a finger, I just know when I started. I think we are in classrooms at a really high rate. We're doing learning walks, as the superintendent says, we have one tomorrow, and these are coordinated. The principals and the assistant principals are doing 3 extremely focused ones per week, and they're submitting the data to me, so we're looking at trends, and the principals have been giving extraordinary feedback, extraordinary focus with a lens back to teachers, and they're giving it back so that all teachers can see it as well. So, obviously it would go very, very specific to a particular teacher about what they saw, but they're coming back and they're looking at the trends. So I think that there's a lot more dialogue, and there's a lot more talk about it. And I think, as the superintendent said, we don't want people in a silo. We have to be transparent in what we do, and those are the efforts that we've already started.
And at the same point, I think the instructional resource specialists we put into the schools, I sat in on the 4th grade meeting at Charlton last year, 2 weeks ago, and observed 2 instructional resource people conducting their meeting with the entire team of teachers. It was very professional. It was very highly focused. This is what we're looking for across the board. The fact that it's specific, and they're talking about what happens in the classroom. That's the other problem, is there wasn't enough opportunity for teachers and administrators to talk about what happens in the classroom. So this is why we're looking at time. We were able to address it this year at the middle school level by having them teach 4 classes, team, and so on. And then now we're going to work with the team leaders to hold them accountable. We want to make sure that that time is being used well. And I think that once they identify the people who need additional support, we're trying to improve the quality. We're not trying to find people to punish. That's not, right. So on. Improve the quality, and then we will make opportunities for them to visit other teachers in the school that are very good. There are exemplars in every single school, okay? But we got to work with our budget and so on to figure out how to use that opportunity. The one piece that, the cheapest piece of technology that we don't use enough is videotapes. Videoing a classroom and having some teachers volunteer, look at some outstanding lessons or reports of lessons, and then use that at a faculty meeting. So there's lots of things you can do, but it's got to be systematic and organized. It can't be just, as the spirit moves me. And one of the things that Pat's tasked with is to ensure that those things happen in a systematic, organized manner. So that's...
Yeah, okay, thank you. My point was really that I know that we have some, like you said, exemplar teachers, and some teachers are very strong in some areas and weak in others. And if we know the teachers that are, what they do well, I'm just all about the whole collaboration. If, don't reinvent the wheel if you're struggling in one particular area of your subject, and yet your neighbor next door has it, and I'm just looking for the sharing, because it just seems easy enough to do that. If you have somebody that's doing it right, why not share that information? The next time these scores or these tests get taken now will again be spring of 2014, so we will not really know the fruits of our labor till a year from now. I just wanted to,
But what I
is
want
that
to say
correct?
is that the principals have already said they want to come and present more often about the progress of the school. DANET testing, for example, and other programs that we have. So I think that's really important that on a calendar basis, we'll set up a little calendar, and they're looking forward to talk about what's happening positive, what's happening good, rather than an annual presentation where we kind of like beat each other up. That doesn't help anybody. But that had to happen today because we had to start someplace. So I think that when we look at elementary, when we look at preschool program and the K, we look at the middle school, we look at the high school, we look at special ed, we look at ELL. Those things are important to show how are we doing, what are we doing. I think, and then having that on a monthly basis or at least once a month and so on, it puts it into digestible bits. And it also puts us in a situation where we're reporting to the public. So a part of the other thing we have to do is get credibility in the community. And the best way to get credibility is come out here and talk about the positive things that are happening, and what's happening in the classroom. When I was, many years ago, one of the first things I did in Greenfield was I had each school come forward and do a State of the Schools address. And what they did was their school improvement plan, and they presented it with all of their data and so on, and then they presented how they were performing and then how they were organizing themselves to improve. So I think that we need to, we have 4 schools, actually 5, and the middle school is going to be a little bit, so I think that needs a separate presentation in high school. And then have 5 State of the Schools addresses during the course of this year. We'll set that up, we'll get a calendar. That's straightforward. They've already wanted to do that.
Mrs. Dunn, do you have one more question?
I just have a
It's getting
comment.
very late, so I want to just kind of
I
move.
don't have any more questions. I was just
Okay.
going to make a final comment. I just wanted to say that I am on board. You say yes, say to yourself, I want to make a difference. I'm telling you, I want to make a difference. So anything that I can do to assist in this process, absolutely, you have my full support. And I think it's actually just creating a whole new culture here. And that's hard, and that's going to take some time, but obviously, we have no other choice. And if you are committed to this district, whether it's you live here or whether it's just a job for you, the bottom line is you're here. And while you're here, everybody has to make a difference. So thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Donovan. Dr. D'Amico?
We have, again, yes, it is getting late, and I'll try to be as constructive as possible. So we kept on hearing, and it just struck me today that every time we come to this point and we analyze data, and then, we go through very similar, yes, it's not stable, people change, but it's similar story. We're going to get data, we're going to disaggregate, reaggregate, we're going to analyze, reanalyze, group, individualize, and this is all great. And we have probably been through every iteration of everything that we have heard tonight, which is not to say that that's not important. But it struck me tonight that really, and we all know this, that, what we're trying to accomplish with student performance is really, there are 2 players. This is not a passive process. This is not delivering milk, right? We can't ask teacher to come with the best bottle, with the best quality milk and put it just so on the doorstep. I mean, we can, but that's not what education is. And here, and really we tend to collectively spend a lot of time discussing new interventions, new programs, new organization, and yet we don't spend enough time discussing the other side, the receiving part, which are the students. How can we make an effort on that side as well to become more receptive? What can we do to make more active partners out of them? We can improve teachers and delivery and instruction and software and whiteboards and blackboards. If that is not received on the other hand with equal enthusiasm and support, again, we're going to be here year after year. There's going to be incremental progress, but I think we need to start thinking, and I think there are clearly ways how we can make our students more receptive, right? And that becomes a whole new ballgame, has nothing to do with the teacher and quality of instruction. It's really, do we need to reorganize classrooms? Do we need to organize schedules? Do we need to organize a million things? And I think one thing that we're going to start noticing, and I really hope it's with good results, is the reconfiguration of schools, creating more stability, continuity, teachers being in proximity, grade to grade to grade to grade. I think that will pay off very, very soon. And so there has to be more on the order of, how do we make the best learners that we can as well?
As you say that, this morning I have little soapboxes at different heights, okay? And so I was talking about Ron Edmonds, who did a lot of research on effective schools. And then I was talking about some of the work that I did. And we know as much as we need to know about students and how they learn, and yet we create structures that go against it. This is one of the things we do. And one of the things I talked about this morning was, why couldn't we loop kids for a couple of years with the same teachers? And you create, and I talked about the work I was doing down south with about 70, 75 kids, 5 teachers, K1, 2. And they stayed together for 3 years. Not new kids added, they stayed together for 3 years. And what do you accomplish? The first thing you accomplish is you socialize, okay? Because you can't say, well, I can put up with Harry, I got 12 more weeks with him, so I'm not going to pay a whole lot of attention to him. You're going to be there with those little kids for 3 years. It's going to address the issue of calendar, because you don't have to come back with a whole new grade level, get used to it, spend the first 2 or 3 weeks testing the kids, find out where they belong. You wasted 10 or 15 days. So this, okay?
I'm glad to hear that. I'm
Yeah.
really glad that it's not always,
We're
better
talking
teaching,
about
better teaching.
teachers getting to know the kids better, and the parents getting to know the kids better over a long period of time. I think we can do that next year with one on a pilot basis. So when you're talking about that, the accountability is if the kids don't perform after 3 years in the same room with those 5 people, there's no hiding. Well, we create a structure now that works against the best interests of what we know about development. I've been saying this for as long as I can remember, because I know I spent a lot of time in Russia. Same teacher teaches the kids for 3 years. I know in this country it's difficult because of the dynamics of teachers and students and parents. So I calculated a number. I calculated 4 teachers and a SPED person. 75 kids, 80 kids, nice class size. The kids are developmentally appropriate. The ones that develop slower, so on. And then now you have that team. They're done with 3 years, they pass them on to 3, 4, and 5. When I was out in the Midwest, it worked very well with a very poor neighborhood in South Kansas City, 90% Hispanic, and that's what they did. It made all the difference in the world. It created that community, that collaboration, the sense. And guess what? There was no new programs, okay? So, and we can do that, I tell you where we can do it very quickly is middle school. One group of kids, teachers stay with them for 3 years. There's lots of things you can do. And so on.
I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
if I can just add, I think one of the things that we're focusing on in our learning walks as well is we're looking at what are the students doing? What are they getting out of this class? And I know that I've seen feedback that's gone back, and, kids can't learn in chaos. And that's not to say you can't have a rambunctious room where a lot of learning is happening, but they can't learn in chaos. They can't learn looking at the back of the teachers' heads. And if I go in a classroom and it's very hard for me to sit there for 20 minutes, I think about what it's like to be 15 and sitting there. So I think we're having some honest conversations, and I think we're trying to put ourselves in the seats of students, and I think that that's a different lens for us.
And as we walk around, it's not like last year I walked around, and one of the reports came out of the middle high school last year. There was kids sitting there with their heads down asleep, and nothing was done about it. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. You just can't say the kid doesn't want to. It's your job. So we spend a lot of time walking around now, and then I've instructed everybody. For kids laying down, I just walk in the room and say, wait, gently nudge them and say, hey, wake up.
Thank you. You're welcome, Mrs. Condon. Nothing this evening? Okay.
Well, through you, Madam Chair, just thank you all for all your hard work. I think everybody asked a lot of questions, and
We're not done yet.
right, it's a long process, and I looked at these scores and I thought it was disgusting, but it's a starting point for the district in making everything better. So I'm here to help do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening and presenting. You want to recess? Can we just take another, a couple, So do you want to recess, or do you want to just quick go through this? All right, we need a 5-minute recess, please. All right. Are you guys ready? Ooh, I guess we're ready. We're returning back from recess to continue on with Agenda 10, Report of the Finance Director. Karen Sheridan, anything this evening?
I don't have any figures to present tonight, but we do have that Budget Committee meeting coming up on October 23rd, and I'm preparing for that.
All right, thank you. Agenda 11, Report of the Superintendent. Anything else this evening?
No more tonight.
Good. All right. Agenda 12, School Committee Actions. A, vote to approve a donation in the amount of $1,000 to Eastford Road School from the Got Milk Campaign and Milk Processor Education Program. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Motion by Dr. O'Leary, seconded by Dr. Domingo. Katie, did you have anything you wanted to say? You can explain it to us if you want. If not, we'll just, we're good?
Point of order.
All right, we're good?
You could just say, really good job.
Any discussion?
Yeah, really nice job.
Seeing no discussion, we'll have a roll call on that vote, please.
Yes. Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Woodruff?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinney?
Yes.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
Mrs. Congdon?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you, motion passes. B, vote to appoint Ms. Julianne Collins as the School Committee Recording Secretary. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Domingo, seconded by Dr. O'Leary. Do I have discussion on that?
I
Mrs.
think,
Quinney?
thank you, Madam Chair. I think that, given that as a school committee, we haven't had a chance to interview Ms. Collins, that I would recommend that we take her minutes from this meeting as part of that interview process as a work sample and table the vote until next time where a representative group of the school committee could meet with her and ask her some questions.
So you're making a motion to, actually, it would be better to postpone it to the next school committee meeting?
I move that we table this vote, yes.
All right, so there's a motion to table this vote. Do I have a second on that motion?
1 second.
Seconded by Dr. Domingo. Any other discussion on the tabling? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote on the tabling of this vote.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Woodruff?
Yes?
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinney?
Yes.
Dr. O'Leary?
No.
Mrs. Congdon?
Yes.
Dr. Domingo?
Yes.
7 yes.
6 yes, 1 no on that
Oh,
one?
sorry.
That's okay, that's okay. While we're in this part here, before I go any further, I did not make the mention, but Ms. Collins is taking our minutes this evening for us because she is an employee of the town. They hired her as a recording secretary, and we had no one this evening, so that's why we have Ms. Collins with us this evening. So thank you for coming to this nice, long first meeting.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to the next vote to appoint official voting delegate for the 2013 MASC-MASS Joint Conference to be held November 6th through 9th, 2013. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Donovan, seconded by Dr. Domingo. Discussion on that, I will just add a little discussion to that to explain. Every year, there's a conference, and every year we have to have a delegate. Any school committee member who wishes to attend can attend, but there will be one section where there's voting. Everybody receives these votes and everything in the mail, so everyone should have received their packet from MASC in the mail so that they know what you're voting on and what the discussion will be. So every district has to have a delegate because they will make the vote. So I believe we have 4 members going this year. I believe it's Mrs. McLaughlin, Mrs. Quinney, Mrs. Congdon, and Mrs. Donovan. So we do need to vote one of them in as our delegate. And then later, after this, we will have to vote in a alternate in case Mrs. Donovan, or whomever we vote in, cannot. Mrs. McLaughlin?
That was my question. Does anybody want to be delegate for this? I was the delegate last year. It was an interesting experience, so if a new member would want to
I did
take
it once
that on.
too, so
Yeah.
feel free to, if somebody really wants
I've
to
done
go.
it.
I mean,
Right.
this is better than,
Anybody? So we can insert a name?
Yeah, we just need a name. If, I believe this is our second notice on it, so I'm not sure what the deadline is. If you want to think about it a little bit further, again, you can postpone it to the next one, but I think we need something. All you do is a yay and a nay in a group of a big room of people, so.
I'll nominate Ms. Donovan.
All right, so Mrs. Donovan will be our delegate, so the vote should read, vote to appoint Mrs. Donovan as the delegate for the 2013 MASC-MASS Joint Conference to be held November 6th through 9th, 2013. So that is our actual motion. Any other discussion on that? I believe we need a roll call vote on that, so we'll need a roll call vote on that, please.
Mrs. Woodruff?
Yes?
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinney?
Yes.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
Mrs. Congdon?
Yes.
Dr. Domingo?
Yes.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
7 yes.
Great, motion passes. We'll move on to the next to appoint the official alternate voting delegate for the 2013. So which one of you lovely ladies would like to be the delegate?
I nominate you.
Mrs. Congdon, so the vote will be to appoint Mrs. Congdon as the voting delegate, alternate voting delegate for the 2013 MASC-MASS Joint Conference to be held in November 6th through the 9th, 2013. So we have a motion for Mrs. Congdon by Mrs. Quinney, and a second, please,
Second.
by Mrs. McLaughlin. Any other discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call on that, please.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinney?
Yes.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
Mrs. Congdon?
Yes.
Dr. Domingo?
Yes.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Woodruff?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you, motion passes. Moving on to unfinished business. Under unfinished business, I have SPED PAC liaison, Mrs. Quinney, if there's anything that you have to report this week.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing is the reminder that the next meeting is October 17th. Anita Poulin will be presenting on sensory processing disorder, and that's from 6 to 8 in room M100. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, or is there any other unfinished business before I move on? Seeing, Mrs. McLaughlin?
Just real quick. Aspira of Massachusetts asked me to share that it's Hispanic Heritage Month, and on Friday, October 11th at 6 o'clock at Mackey's at 61 Chestnut Street, they will be holding a celebration of sorts honoring Southbridge High School Latino graduates from years 1975 to 2000. Tickets are available $20 in advance or $25 at the door. For more information, www.info@aspirama.org. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other unfinished? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. The next regular school committee meeting will be held October 22nd, 2013 in the council chambers. Is there any other new business this evening? Seeing none, we are not having executive session this evening, so I need a motion for adjournment. A motion by Dr. O'Leary, seconded by Dr. Domingo. Show of hands, please. All in favor. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.